I'm Emily, 34, and my husband Bob is 27. Although we didn't notice the age gap much during our dating years, it became more apparent once we decided to marry. When I first met his parents, I was struck by their rural home in the Northeast and their deeply conservative views. They were initially very resistant to our relationship because of our age difference. I remember their disapproval vividly, with comments like, "They say an older wife is a rare find, but 7 years is quite a lot. Can Emily even have children at her age? Won't her eggs be too old?" Such remarks could easily alienate most women. While the father-in-law was merely rude, the mother-in-law was outright hostile. She declared, "I refuse to accept this. Why does Bob need to marry someone 7 years older? It's too embarrassing to even discuss with the neighbors. He'll soon be back here to take over the family business. And with your city background, you're simply not suited to be our daughter-in-law." Bob and I had been together for 6 years, and I had devoted nearly all my late 20s to him. I was committed to marrying him, and after living together for a few years, I didn't have the energy to search for someone else. In my frustration, I pushed Bob into proposing, and he reluctantly agreed. Perhaps due to his youth or just his nature, he seemed to prefer keeping things as they were. When his parents opposed our engagement, he quickly shifted his stance, saying, "See, I told you it was too soon to get married. We can just register our marriage later." I responded firmly, "It's not too soon. The age difference will change no matter how much time passes." Turning back to his parents with a polite smile, I said, "Yes, I am older than Bob, but that's something beyond our control. I promise to do my best to prove myself as a worthy daughter-in-law. I'm not perfect, but I hope you can accept me." Though they agreed with some reluctance, Bob's sister was adamantly opposed. At our first meeting, she bluntly declared, "Just so you know, don't refer to me as your sister-in-law. It's completely unacceptable for my brother to marry someone older than me." Looking back, I realized I was naive. Yet, with the confidence of someone who had navigated difficult clients in my work, I believed I could handle it. I now understand what they call bride bullying. I convinced myself that moving back to the countryside to live with the in-laws was not as bad as the horror stories I had read online. I should have called off the wedding at that point, but as they say, hindsight is 20/20. Now, a year later, I deeply regret getting married. Although our daily life and work routines didn't change much after we registered our marriage, one major shift was the frequent phone calls Bob started receiving from his mother. I could only guess what they were about, likely questioning when we moved back home and probably urging him to consider divorce. Whenever Bob received calls from his mother, he would retreat to another room or the bathroom, trying to shield me from overhearing. But with our small apartment, it was impossible not to catch snippets of the conversation. I often heard phrases like, "So Emily was saying," and couldn't help but listen in. It seemed they were accusing me of opposing the idea of moving back to Bob's hometown to live with his parents, but that wasn't true. When I asked Bob about moving back, he had expressed reluctance, saying he didn't want to live somewhere without a nearby convenience store and where job opportunities were scarce. It seemed he was using me as a scapegoat for his own unwillingness to return home. It was frustrating to see Bob cast me as the villain to cover up his own hesitations. Just now, I overheard Bob in the next room saying, "So, if I bring up divorce, I'd have to pay alimony, right?" His hesitation about divorce wasn't rooted in any lingering affection for me, but rather in his aversion to paying alimony. Hearing his true feelings was disheartening. It might be time to seriously consider divorce. Although we don't have children, I began contemplating it privately without mentioning it to anyone. Shortly after, I received a call about Bob's sister's upcoming wedding, prompting us to take the express train back to his family's home for the ceremony. Despite Bob being considered the heir, our wedding had been a modest family dinner, while his sister's wedding was set to be a lavish event. I wanted to fulfill my social obligations and avoid any further fault on our part, despite the disparity. The wedding was scheduled for the middle of a 3-day weekend, so Bob and I arrived at his family's home the day before. Bob's sister's fiancé is from a neighboring city, and the wedding was set to take place at a venue there, with plans for the relatives to travel by chartered bus on the day of the event. As the family home became a hub for relatives, they began arriving in droves. The ceremony was set for just after 2:00 p.m. To avoid overcrowding the venue's dressing rooms, the venue staff, hairdressers and dressers came to the house, and even Bob's parents were getting dressed up. Our own wedding had been more of a simple family dinner, so we wore slightly nicer everyday clothes. The contrast in treatment was stark and surprising. I had changed into the dress I had splurged on for the occasion, done my makeup, and was setting my hair when my father-in-law called out, "Hey Emily, could you serve some refreshments to the relatives waiting?" With a smile, I began handing out refreshments, introducing myself with, "Nice to meet you. I'm Bob's wife. Please enjoy the refreshments," and trying to make my presence felt with the poise of a seasoned TV announcer. Despite my mother-in-law's suggestion to stay in Bob's room, I was eager to fulfill my role and make a good impression. I was determined to make a positive impression. Shortly after, the bus arrived to take us to the wedding venue. The relatives boarded with excitement, and as I prepared to join them, my mother-in-law called out, "Wait a minute, Emily. I forgot the pearl necklace. Could you go get it?" "Really, in this formal dress?" I asked. She insisted, "It's in the drawer on top of the dresser in my room. It's a keepsake from my mother. Please hurry and bring it." "Understood. I'll look for it now," I replied. I hurried to my mother-in-law's room and began searching through the cluttered dresser drawer. The necklace wasn't immediately visible, and with everyone else already on the bus, I started to feel anxious. After about 5 minutes, I found a box that looked promising. I opened it quickly and dashed to the entrance, only to see that the bus had already left. The entire family, including Bob, had departed without me. "You've got to be kidding," I exclaimed, rubbing my eyes in disbelief. The bus was nowhere in sight. I panicked, realizing I'd left my cell phone in my bag, which had already been loaded onto the bus. I knew the venue's name but didn't have the phone number. Without my phone, I couldn't reach Bob, and without my wallet, I couldn't even get a taxi. What was I going to do? For a moment, I felt a wave of despair, but then I thought, do we even need to go to the wedding? My enthusiasm for the event had completely evaporated. It wasn't just my first time meeting the relatives. Surely, my in-laws and Bob must have noticed I wasn't on the bus. Their departure without me seemed unnecessarily cruel. The idea of divorce crossed my mind, but simply ending the marriage seemed too easy. I wanted revenge. After some contemplation, I devised a plan. I stepped outside with a calm demeanor and a smile, preparing to execute my scheme. When the relatives, in-laws, and Bob returned from the wedding around 5:00 p.m., they were visibly drunk. By then, I had gathered all my belongings except for the bag that had gone with them. I found a taxi company's number in a phone book next to the in-laws' home phone and called, requesting a taxi to pick me up in 30 minutes. Everything was set. I greeted them at the bus with an innocent expression. Bob's face showed guilt when he saw me, but he didn't say a word. My in-laws ignored me, preoccupied with sending off the relatives. The relatives glanced my way but left in their cars. I wished Bob would at least offer an apology, but that's just how he was. With a forced smile, I said to Bob, "Welcome back." He looked visibly relieved and began making excuses. "I didn't realize you weren't on the bus." I felt bad, but the ceremony was starting, so I couldn't come back for you. I ignored his excuses and started searching through the luggage for my bag, silently conveying my disbelief. I turned to him and said, "Divorce? Is this some kind of joke? Because it certainly feels like one." When Bob realized what I had said, he began to panic. "Who knows? I'm surprised you think such a petty lie would work. So what if you weren't noticed? Are you saying you forgot I existed until you saw me?" While both of his parents were awful, the real disappointment was Bob. He was left speechless, unable to defend himself. Then my father-in-law, after sending off the relatives, chimed in, "Come on, it was just a little forgetfulness on both sides. Bob's talking about divorce over something like this? City brides are really spineless." It seemed he was actually in favor of the divorce. My mother-in-law, upon hearing about it, smirked and said, "I knew it. A city bride just doesn't fit in. She was never right for our family." Her hypocrisy infuriated me. If that was how they felt, they should have just invited Bob to the wedding alone. Why make me travel all this way only to leave me behind? Anyone would be outraged by such treatment, whether they're a city bride or a country bride. When I shouted, my mother-in-law shouted back, "We never intended to invite you in the first place. There wasn't even a seat prepared for you. Bob brought you along by mistake, so we left you behind." What? I was shocked by her audacity. As I glared, Bob quickly looked away and shifted the blame to his mother, saying, "Well, Mom didn't explicitly say to come alone, so I assumed it meant as a couple." My mother-in-law's unreasonable anger continued. "And why did you go around serving tea and introducing yourself as the bride?" At the venue, relatives were asking why the wife didn't show up, not realizing Bob was even married. It made us look foolish. That's your own fault, and it's absurd to say I shouldn't introduce myself, I retorted. It seemed my effort to introduce myself as Bob's wife to the relatives had made an impact. So, you never intended to acknowledge me and planned to divorce me eventually. That's why you kept our wedding a secret from the relatives and made it seem like just a dinner party. Neither my father-in-law nor my mother-in-law responded, but their silence confirmed my suspicions. It was clear to me that severing ties with this family was the right decision. Fine, I'll grant your wish and divorce you. I'm better off without a hostile family and an unreliable husband. I boarded the taxi that had just arrived and took the last train back to my apartment. Unable to sleep that night, I impulsively searched for lawyers online and began packing my belongings. I kept myself busy until dawn. When I finally woke up late the next day, I found several missed calls from Bob and my in-laws. It seemed my revenge had made its mark. After being left behind, I came up with a plan for revenge, but I wanted to keep it within the bounds of safety and legality. I didn't want to just divorce and suffer in silence without making a statement. I recalled how concerned my mother-in-law was about the neighbors' opinions. There was a surplus of refreshments and snacks she had bought for the relatives, so I decided to use them. I bagged up the leftover treats and set out around the neighborhood, greeting everyone with a smile. "Hello, I'm Bob's wife," I announced, and proceeded to share everything about how I had been treated and left behind on the wedding day. That evening, my mother-in-law and I had a loud argument outside. Naturally, the entire neighborhood heard, a perfect form of revenge for a family so worried about their public image. Afterward, Bob and I divorced without any major complications. The stories I shared were framed as casual conversations, so I wasn't sued for defamation. With the help of a lawyer, I was able to claim compensation for the abandonment and secure a satisfactory settlement. As for my sister-in-law, her marriage quickly unraveled. She had concealed her difficult personality to get married, but people rarely change. Her true nature emerged, and the marriage soared rapidly. Within 6 months, she had divorced and moved back to her parents' home. By then, the incident of my abandonment had become a notorious rumor. Eventually, the in-laws gained a reputation as a vile family that mistreated their daughter-in-law, leading to a much more subdued existence. Bob's prospects of finding a new bride in his hometown seemed bleak. I learned all this from a neighbor I had befriended and exchanged phone numbers with. It felt like perfect justice. For me, the divorce felt like a new beginning. I regretted not recognizing the true nature of Bob and his family sooner, but now I had a clear perspective. Perhaps I should have withdrawn immediately when faced with their initial opposition, but I was young and naive. I don't want to disregard the happy moments we shared, so I see the past year as a valuable lesson for my future. I'm relieved to have resolved the situation and moved on.
I never thought a simple receipt would be the thing that shattered my world. It was just sitting there on our kitchen counter, partially hidden under a stack of mail, but something about it caught my eye. Maybe it was the store name, Harrison and Sons Jewelers, or maybe it was the amount, $3,875. My name is Jenna, and up until that moment, I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life. I'm a third-grade teacher, married to my college sweetheart Ethan, and we had what I believed was an open, honest relationship. At least, that's what I kept telling myself as I stared at that receipt, dated just 3 days ago. "Hey, babe," Ethan called out as he walked through the front door. "Traffic was awful today. Did you start dinner?" I quickly slipped the receipt into my pocket. "Not yet. I just got home myself." My voice sounded strange, even to me. Parent-teacher conferences ran late. Ethan dropped his briefcase by the stairs and loosened his tie. He looked tired, but there was something else, a nervousness I'd never noticed before. "Oh yeah. How'd they go?" "Fine." I busied myself with pulling out pots and pans, trying to act normal while my mind raced. Our anniversary wasn't for months. My birthday had passed 2 weeks ago with just a card and dinner at our favorite Italian place. Actually, something interesting happened today. He was scrolling through his phone, barely looking up. One of my students' parents works at Harrison and Sons Jewelers. A complete lie, but I watched his reaction carefully. His thumb stopped moving on the screen for just a fraction of a second. She was telling me about some of their new pieces. "That's nice." He cleared his throat. "Listen, I might have to go out of town next weekend. Vanessa needs help with some financial paperwork for the house." Vanessa. His sister. The same sister who'd been borrowing money from him for years, despite her well-paying job. The same sister who always seemed to need Ethan's help at the most convenient times. Again. I tried to keep the edge out of my voice. Didn't you just help her last month? She's going through a rough patch, Jen. You know how it is being a single mom. I turned to face him fully. Do I? Because what I do know is that Chloe's father pays generous child support, and Vanessa makes 6 figures at her firm. Can we not do this right now? Ethan ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I used to find endearing. Now it just seemed like a tell. I'm tired, and I've got a presentation tomorrow. I wanted to pull out the receipt. I wanted to demand answers. But something held me back. Maybe fear, maybe intuition. Instead, I watched him head upstairs to shower, leaving me alone with my thoughts and a growing knot in my stomach. Later that night, as Ethan slept beside me, I lay awake scrolling through our joint credit card statements. The jewelry store purchase wasn't there. He must have used his personal card, the one he'd insisted on keeping separate for work expenses. My phone buzzed with a text from Susan, my mother-in-law. Lunch tomorrow? Need to talk. Something in her message made my heart race. Susan had always been more of a mother to me than my own, and she had an uncanny ability to sense when things weren't right. I typed back a quick yes and set my phone down, turning to study my husband's sleeping face. After 10 years together, I thought I knew every line, every expression. But now, in the dim light from the street lamp outside, he looked like a stranger. Tomorrow I'd have lunch with Susan. Tomorrow I'd start asking questions. But tonight, I lay in the dark, clutching a jewelry store receipt for a gift I never received, wondering just how many other secrets were hiding in plain sight. Susan chose a quiet corner table at Riverside Cafe, far from the lunch crowd. I could tell by her expression that this wasn't going to be a casual catch-up. She hadn't even touched her tea. I saw Vanessa yesterday, she said, folding and unfolding her napkin. She was wearing a beautiful sapphire pendant. Brand new, she said. My stomach dropped. Sapphire. Ethan knew they were my favorite. That's interesting. I took a sip of water, trying to steady my voice. Did she mention where she got it? Susan's eyes met mine. Jenna, honey, I think you already know. Before I could respond, the cafe door chimed. Vanessa walked in, designer handbag swinging, Chloe trailing behind her. My niece's face lit up when she saw us. Aunt Jenna. Chloe rushed over for a hug, and I held her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of strawberry shampoo. What a coincidence, Vanessa said, though her tone suggested it was anything but. The sapphire pendant gleamed at her throat. Mind if we join you? Susan shot me an apologetic look. I forced a smile, shifting to make room for Chloe beside me. Vanessa pulled up a chair, arranging herself like she was posing for a photo shoot. We were just discussing career options for Chloe, Vanessa announced. I told her she could be anything she wants. Doctor, lawyer, CEO. She paused, her smile sharp. Though some people are content with simpler paths. I felt Chloe tense beside me. I want to be a teacher like Aunt Jenna, she said quietly. Vanessa's smile tightened. Sweetie, you're so bright. You could do so much more. Actually, Susan cut in. Jenna just got nominated for Teacher of the Year. 3rd time, isn't it? How nice, Vanessa said, examining her manicure. Though I suppose with a teacher's salary, you and Ethan must struggle sometimes. It's so important to be financially secure these days. The sapphire caught the light as she moved, and something inside me snapped. We manage just fine. Though some people seem to need constant financial assistance, despite their 6-figure incomes. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. What exactly are you implying? Mom, Chloe interrupted. Can I get a cookie? Not now, sweetie. Vanessa leaned forward. I'd love to hear what Jenna means. Susan cleared her throat. Girls. I said, my heart pounding, that it must be nice having a brother who's always there to bail you out. Who buys you expensive jewelry while telling his wife we need to cut back on expenses. The color drained from Vanessa's face. You don't know what you're talking about. The receipt says otherwise. Chloe looked between us, confusion and worry crossing her face. I immediately regretted letting my anger show. Chloe, why don't we go get that cookie? Susan stood, holding out her hand. After a moment's hesitation, Chloe followed her to the counter. Vanessa waited until they were out of earshot. Listen carefully, she hissed. What happens between me and my brother is none of your business. Ethan understands family loyalty, even if you don't. Loyalty? Is that what you call manipulating him? You really don't get it, do you? She touched the pendant. Ethan knows who his real family is. Always has, always will. Don't make him choose, Jenna. You won't like the outcome. My phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. Where are you? Thought we were having lunch together. I'd completely forgotten our plans. Another buzz. Never mind. Having lunch with Vanessa to discuss the house situation. Vanessa smirked at her own phone. Duty calls. Come on, Chloe. As they left, Susan returned to the table. She reached across and squeezed my hand. There's something you need to know about Vanessa, she said quietly. Something that happened years ago, before you and Ethan met. But before she could continue, my phone rang. It was the school principal. An emergency staff meeting had been called. Tomorrow, Susan promised as I gathered my things. Come to my house. There's more to this than you know. I nodded, watching Vanessa's car pull away, the weight of unspoken secrets pressing down like storm clouds gathering overhead. Whatever Susan knew, whatever was really going on with Ethan and Vanessa, I had a feeling this was just the beginning. The business card in my hand read, Sam Hargrove Investigations, in simple black text. No fancy logo, no promises of discretion or excellence, just a name, number, and address. Susan had slipped it to me after telling me about Vanessa's history, about the mysterious fire at their father's business right before the insurance payout, about the string of convenient accidents that always seemed to benefit her. I sat in my car outside Sam's office for 20 minutes before working up the courage to go in. The reality of hiring a private investigator to look into my own husband felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. Mrs. Carlyle? Sam was nothing like the noir detective I'd imagined. He wore khakis and a polo shirt, and his office looked more like an accountant's than a PI's. What can I help you with? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Chloe. Aunt Jenna, Mom's crying again. She says we might have to move. I need you to look into some financial transactions, I said, pulling out copies of bank statements I'd gathered. And I need to understand what's happening to my niece's college fund. Sam's eyebrows rose as he flipped through the papers. These are significant transfers. All to the same account. My sister-in-law's. But Chloe's college fund is supposed to be untouchable. Their father set it up in the divorce agreement. Yet here it is, being drained through a series of small withdrawals. He tapped his computer keyboard. Does your husband have access to these accounts? He's the trustee. My voice cracked. But he wouldn't. He couldn't. Another text from Chloe. Mom says Uncle Ethan promised to help. What's happening? Sam looked up from his screen. Mrs. Carlyle, these patterns suggest something systematic. Someone's been very careful about staying just under certain reporting thresholds. My phone rang. Ethan. I let it go to voicemail. How long will it take to trace everything? I asked. A few days for the preliminary report. But Sam hesitated. You should know that once we start digging, we might find things you're not prepared for. I thought about Chloe's texts, about Vanessa's smirk in the cafe, about the sapphire pendant that should have been mine. I'm already not prepared for any of this. Later that evening, I found Chloe sitting on our front porch. She'd obviously walked the 3 blocks from her house alone. Mom and Uncle Ethan are fighting, she said as I sat beside her. About money again. And about you. I wrapped an arm around her shoulders. What about me? Mom says you're trying to come between them. That you don't understand about family. She looked up at me, her eyes too serious for a 9-year-old. But your family too, right? Before I could answer, a car screeched to a halt in front of our house. Vanessa jumped out, fury radiating from every movement. Chloe, get in the car right now. Vanessa, she's upset. Let her. Stay out of this. Vanessa grabbed Chloe's arm. You've done enough damage. Ethan may be too blind to see what you're doing, but I'm not. What I'm doing? I stood up. I'm not the one draining my daughter's college fund. Vanessa froze. Behind her, another car pulled up, Ethan's. What's going on? He demanded, looking between us. Ask your sister about Chloe's college fund, I said. Ask her about all the money she's been taking. Don't you dare, Vanessa hissed. Ethan, she's having me investigated. Your own wife. Ethan's face went pale. Jenna, is this true? In that moment, watching him look at me with shock and betrayal, I realized something crucial. He already knew. He'd known all along. Get in the car, Chloe, Vanessa said quietly, triumphantly. Your aunt and uncle need to talk. As they drove away, Ethan and I stood in the growing darkness, the weight of unspoken truths hanging between us like a storm about to break. My phone buzzed one last time, a text from Sam. Found something. You need to see this now. Sam's office felt colder at night. He spread photographs across his desk, surveillance shots of Ethan and Vanessa outside various banks, coffee shops, restaurants. But it was the documents beside them that made my hands shake. These are transfer records from offshore accounts, Sam explained. Your husband's been moving money through shell companies for years. But here's where it gets interesting. He pointed to a highlighted section. These transactions started right after your father-in-law's death. The insurance money, I whispered. Vanessa said it barely covered the debts. There was no debt. Sam's voice was gentle. The business was profitable. The insurance payout was substantial. And most of it disappeared within months. My phone buzzed. Ethan again. 17 missed calls now. But why would they? I stopped, remembering something Susan had said about the fire. About Vanessa being the last one in the building that night. Oh God. There's more. Sam pulled out another document. Your niece's college fund? It's being used as collateral for loans. High-risk investments, all channeled through companies registered to Vanessa. A knock at the office door made us both jump. Through the frosted glass, I recognized Susan's silhouette. I followed you, she said when I let her in. After what happened with Chloe, I knew you'd be here. She looked at the scattered evidence. You found it, didn't you? The truth about the fire. Mrs. Carlyle, Sam started, but Susan cut him off. I've kept quiet for too long. She picked up one of the photos. Ethan and Vanessa outside Harrison and Sons Jewelers. My husband wasn't supposed to be there that night. Vanessa convinced him to come in late, to check the books. She'd been telling him for months that money was missing. My phone buzzed again. A text from Chloe, Mom's packing bags. She says we're going to Grandma's house in Florida. She's running, I realized. She knows we're close to the truth. Not without Chloe. I grabbed my coat. Susan, I need you too. The office door burst open. Ethan stood there, tie loose, eyes wild. Jenna, please. Whatever you think you know. Your father died in that fire, I said quietly. And you helped cover it up. I didn't know. His voice cracked. Not at first. Vanessa said it was an accident, that she'd lose Chloe if anyone investigated too closely. She needed help moving the insurance money to protect herself. I just wanted to protect my sister. And now, I gestured at the evidence. What about protecting Chloe's future? Her college fund. I can fix this. He stepped toward me. We'll get the money back. Set up new accounts. Like you fixed it 10 years ago? Susan's voice was steel. My husband is dead, Ethan. Your father. And you chose to protect his killer. My phone lit up with another text from Chloe. Aunt Jenna, I'm scared. Mom's acting weird. Please come get me. Ethan saw the message. Something shifted in his face. Realization, horror, resolve. She's at the house? For now. I grabbed Sam's card. But she's planning to run tonight. No. Ethan straightened his tie, a gesture so familiar it hurt. Not this time. I'm done choosing the wrong side. Mrs. Carlyle, Sam interrupted, holding up another document. These recent transfers, they're not just about hiding money anymore. They're liquidating everything. If your sister-in-law leaves the country with these funds. She won't. I headed for the door, Ethan and Susan behind me. Because this time, she'll have to go through all of us. Outside, storm clouds gathered over the city. My phone buzzed one final time, a text from Vanessa. You want the truth, little sister? Come alone. 1 hour. You know where. I showed the message to Ethan. His face went pale. The old factory, he whispered. Where it all started. The first drops of rain hit the pavement as we rushed to our cars, each of us knowing that tonight would end where it began, in fire and truth. Injustice long delayed. The old factory loomed against the stormy sky, its broken windows like dead eyes staring down at us. Ethan grabbed my arm before I could head inside. Let me go first, he said. I know how Vanessa thinks. That's exactly why you're staying here. I pulled away, remembering all his past choices. Call the police. Tell them everything. But Chloe needs someone she trusts right now, not someone who's been lying to her. Lightning illuminated the factory skeleton, and for a moment, I saw the ghost of what it had been. Before the fire, before the lies. Before everything fell apart. Inside, my footsteps echoed on concrete. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness, and the air smelled of rust and old memories. My phone's flashlight caught movement ahead. Chloe, huddled in a corner, tear tracks on her face. Aunt Jenna. She started to run toward me, but Vanessa stepped out of the shadows. Stay where you are, sweetie. The sapphire pendant gleamed at her throat. Your aunt and I need to talk first. Where are the bags, Vanessa? The ones you packed for Florida. She laughed, but it wasn't the confident sound from the cafe. You think you figured it all out, don't you? The devoted sister-in-law, protecting everyone from big bad Vanessa. I know about the fire. My voice echoed off the walls. About what really happened to your father. What happened? Chloe's voice trembled. Mom. Vanessa's face hardened. What happened is that some people don't deserve what they have. My father was going to sell the business. Did you know that? Leave nothing for his children except his precious moral legacy. So you killed him for money? I created an opportunity. Her voice rose, bouncing off the walls. And Ethan understood. He helped me protect what was ours. But you, she stepped closer. You had to start digging. Had to play the hero. A crash from above made us both jump. Footsteps on metal stairs. That'll be your backup? Vanessa smiled. But I have something better. She pulled out her phone, showing me the screen. A transfer confirmation. One button, and everything, the college fund, the insurance money, all of it, disappears into accounts you'll never trace. Mom, please. Chloe stood up. I don't want to go to Florida. I want to stay here with Aunt Jenna and Uncle Ethan. This isn't about what you want. Vanessa snapped. This is about what we deserve. More footsteps above, closer now. Vanessa's finger hovered over her phone. You want to know what really happened that night? She was almost whispering now. Dad caught me changing the books. He said he was going to turn me in, that prison would teach me values. So I showed him what values are really worth in this world. By burning everything down, my hand found a piece of metal pipe, cold and heavy. By surviving. She jabbed at her phone screen. There. It's done. Good luck proving anything now. But I was smiling. Check your signal. Her face fell as she looked at her phone again. No bars. The factory's steel frame blocked everything. You're not the only one who can plan ahead, I said, pulling out my own phone. The recording bar blinked steadily. Tell me again about that night with your father? The footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs. Ethan emerged from the shadows, followed by Susan and 2 police officers. No, Vanessa whispered. Ethan, you can't. It's over, Vanessa. His voice cracked. I should have ended it 10 years ago. As the officers moved forward, Vanessa looked at each of us, her mother, her brother, her daughter. The sapphire pendant caught the light one last time before she reached up and ripped it from her neck, letting it clatter to the floor. You want to know something funny? She didn't resist as they cuffed her. That necklace? It's fake. Just like everything else in this family. Chloe ran to me, burying her face in my jacket. Above us, thunder rolled across the sky, and rain began to pour through the broken windows, washing away a decade of secrets and lies. The police station's fluorescent lights made everything look harsh and unreal. I sat across from Detective Martinez, watching her flip through Sam's files, the evidence we'd gathered, the recording from the factory. Chloe had fallen asleep on the bench outside, her head in Susan's lap. Mrs. Carlyle, Martinez said, we have enough to charge your sister-in-law with financial crimes. But murder? She tapped the decade-old fire report. That's going to be harder to prove. She confessed. You heard the recording. A confession obtained under duress, in a hostile situation. Her lawyers already moving to suppress it. Through the window, I could see Ethan in another room, his head in his hands. He hadn't looked at me since we'd left the factory. There's something else. Martinez slid a new document across the table. We found this in Vanessa's house. It's a contract signed by your husband last week, transferring your home into a trust controlled by Vanessa. The room tilted sideways. That's not possible. He wouldn't. It's his signature. Notarized. A knock at the door interrupted us. Sam entered, looking grim. You need to see this. He placed his laptop on the table, playing security footage from Harrison and Sons Jewelers. There was Ethan, buying the sapphire pendant. And next to him, smiling, was a woman who wasn't Vanessa. That's Claire Morgan, Martinez said. Vanessa's lawyer. They've been working together for months, preparing for this. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. The jewelry receipt I'd found wasn't for Vanessa at all. It was for Claire. Ethan hadn't just been helping his sister, he'd been planning to leave with someone else. Mrs. Carlyle? A uniformed officer appeared at the door. Your niece is asking for you. In the hallway, Chloe looked small and lost under the harsh lights. Is Mom going to jail? Before I could answer, Claire Morgan strode in, her heels clicking on the linoleum. Not if I can help it. She smiled at me, wearing a familiar sapphire pendant. In fact, I have a proposition that might help everyone. Susan stood, placing herself between Claire and Chloe. Haven't you people done enough? This isn't about us. Claire's smile never wavered. It's about Chloe. Vanessa's willing to make a full confession about the financial crimes, return most of the money on one condition. She paused, letting the words hang. Full custody of Chloe goes to Ethan and me. You can't be serious. But I saw Ethan through the window, now standing watching us. Think about it, Claire continued. A fresh start for everyone. Chloe gets a stable home, away from all this ugliness. Vanessa serves a lighter sentence. And you. She gestured at the station around us. You get to walk away knowing you did the right thing. The right thing. My voice shook. Like burning down a building with someone inside? Like stealing a child's future. Aunt Jenna, Chloe's hand found mine. I don't want to go with them. Claire's smile hardened. Unfortunately, that's not your decision. The custody papers are already drawn up. Ethan signed them this morning. Through the window, Ethan finally met my eyes. There was no remorse there, no conflict. Just emptiness. You have until morning to decide, Claire said, turning to leave. Either way, things change tomorrow. After she left, Susan pulled me aside. There's one thing we haven't tried. She pressed a key into my hand. Your father-in-law's old office at the house. There's a safe behind his portrait. I never told anyone, not even Ethan. What's in it? I don't know. But the night before the fire, he called me. Said he'd found something that would change everything. She squeezed my hand. Be careful. If Vanessa finds out. I looked at Chloe, still watching us with worried eyes, then at Ethan through the window, now deep in conversation with Claire. The weight of the key felt like lead in my palm. I'll go tonight, I whispered. But first, I need you to take Chloe somewhere safe. Somewhere they won't look. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky again, like an echo from the factory. But this time, it felt less like an ending and more like a warning of what was still to come. The old Carlyle house stood dark against the night sky, but I knew we weren't alone. A car I didn't recognize sat in the shadows of the driveway, Claire's Mercedes. Of course they'd be here, searching for anything that could help their case. Sam's voice crackled through my earpiece. Security systems disabled. But hurry, police can only delay processing Vanessa's confession for another hour. I used the garden key Susan had given me, slipping in through the back door. Voices drifted down from upstairs. Ethan and Claire, arguing about something. The home office was on the first floor, past the kitchen where I'd first found that jewelry receipt. It felt like a lifetime ago. The portrait of Richard Carlyle hung exactly where it had for decades, his stern eyes watching as I carefully lifted it from the wall. The safe was there, just as Susan had said. My hands shook as I entered the combination she'd given me. Richard's wedding anniversary. It's not here. Claire's voice grew closer. Your mother must have moved it. She doesn't know about the safe, Ethan replied. Keep looking. The safe clicked open just as footsteps reached the stairs. Inside lay a single USB drive and a sealed envelope addressed to Susan. I grabbed both, but as I turned to leave, the office light flicked on. I had a feeling you'd try something like this. Vanessa stood in the doorway, having somehow made bail. She looked different without the sapphire pendant. Smaller, desperate. Hand it over. How did you get out of jail? Money talks. And Claire walks. She stepped into the room. Did you really think I wouldn't have a backup plan? That I'd let you destroy everything I've built? More footsteps above. Down here, Vanessa called out. She's got it. I backed toward the window. Your father knew, didn't he? That's what's on this drive. What you really did with the company money before the fire. You don't understand. I had to protect us, protect Chloe. The company was failing. The company was fine. You were stealing from it. Give me the drive, Jenna. Ethan appeared behind Vanessa, Claire at his side. Please. We can still fix this. I pulled out my phone, holding it up. Sam? You getting all this? Loud and clear, his voice came through the speaker, along with the police officers outside. Vanessa lunged forward, but I was ready. Sidestepping her grab, I slammed the office door shut, catching Claire's arm as she reached for me. The USB drive fell, skittering across the floor. No. Vanessa dove for it, but another hand got there first. Susan stood in the connecting door to the library, drive in hand. Enough, Mom. Vanessa's voice cracked. How did you? I've been here all along, waiting to see what you'd choose. She held up the envelope. Your father wrote this the night he died. He knew what you were doing, Vanessa. But he loved you enough to give you a chance to confess. And now, Claire demanded. What's your plan? Turn them in? Destroy your own family. Family? Susan's laugh was bitter. Family doesn't kill each other for money. Family doesn't steal a child's future. She looked at Ethan. Family doesn't betray the people who love them. Red and blue lights suddenly flooded the room. Outside, police cars surrounded the house. It's over, I said quietly. The real confession isn't on that drive, Vanessa. It's been in your mother's hands all along. Understanding dawned in Vanessa's eyes as Susan pulled out a recorder, the same model their father had used in his office. The one that had been running the night of the fire. I'm sorry, Ethan whispered, but I couldn't tell who he was talking to. As the police entered, I watched the last pieces of the Carlyle family's facade crumble. But underneath the ruins, something else remained. Something built on truth rather than lies, on justice rather than revenge. Through the window, I saw Chloe step out of Sam's car, Detective Martinez at her side. She looked up at the house, not at her mother or Ethan, but at me. And in that moment, I knew that sometimes protecting family means being strong enough to break it apart first. 6 months later, I stood in my classroom, erasing the day's lessons from the whiteboard when I heard familiar footsteps in the doorway. Ready for the hearing tomorrow? Sam asked, leaning against the doorframe. I set down the eraser, as ready as anyone can be to watch their sister-in-law's sentencing. The past months had unfolded like scenes from someone else's life. Vanessa's trial for her father's murder. Ethan's plea deal for his role in the financial crimes. Claire's disbarment. Through it all, Chloe had shown a resilience that still amazed me. Aunt Jenna. Speaking of resilience, Chloe appeared behind Sam, wearing her backpack. Mom wants to see me before tomorrow. Will you come with me? The prison visiting room was cold and sterile, but Vanessa somehow still managed to look polished in her orange jumpsuit. The sapphire pendant was long gone, replaced by shadows under her eyes that makeup couldn't hide. You've grown, she said to Chloe. Are they treating you well at Susan's? Chloe nodded, her hand finding mine under the table. Grandma's teaching me to bake. And Aunt Jenna helps me with homework every day after school. I'm sorry, Vanessa said suddenly, the words seeming to surprise even her. Not for what I did. I thought I was protecting you, giving you the future you deserved. But I'm sorry for how I did it. That's not protection, Chloe replied, sounding older than her 9 years. That's just another lie. On our way out, we passed Ethan being let in for his own visit. He'd been released last week, after serving his shorter sentence. Our eyes met briefly, and I saw something there I hadn't expected. Not regret or shame, but understanding. He asked about you, Susan told me later that evening, as we sat on her porch watching Chloe play in the yard. About whether you'd consider. No. The answer came easily now. Some things can't be fixed. She handed me an envelope, the one from the safe, finally opened. Richard wrote this the night he died. He knew what Vanessa was planning, but he also knew something else. She paused. He knew about Chloe's real father. I looked at the letter, then at Chloe chasing fireflies in the growing dusk. Does she need to know? Maybe someday. But right now, Susan smiled. Right now, she needs what she has. People who love her enough to tell her the truth, even when it hurts. The next morning, before heading to court, I found something in my mailbox. A small package wrapped in brown paper. Inside was the sapphire pendant, no longer gleaming quite so brightly, with a note in Ethan's handwriting. I bought this for you originally, before everything went wrong, before I forgot what really matters. It belongs to you, like the truth belonged to my father, and the future belongs to Chloe. I drove to the jewelry store instead of the courthouse. The owner recognized the pendant immediately. Beautiful piece, he said. Would you like to sell it? No. I placed it on the counter. I'd like to trade it for something else. A locket, maybe. Something a young girl might like to keep her memories in. That evening, after the sentencing was done and the reporters had gone home, Chloe and I sat on the porch swing at Susan's house. She turned the locket over in her hands, opening it to see the tiny pictures inside. Her with me, with Susan, with her teachers and friends. Is this my family now? She asked. Family is complicated, I said, thinking of Vanessa in her cell, of Ethan trying to rebuild his life, of Susan keeping decades of secrets to protect those she loved. Sometimes it's not who you're born to, but who you choose to become. She leaned against me, the locket clutched tight. Above us, stars began appearing in the darkening sky, each one a tiny light pushing back against the darkness. Like truth against lies, like love against fear, like the endless choice between what's easy and what's right. Then I choose this, she whispered. I choose us. Sometimes I've learned the greatest revenge isn't in destroying what hurt you, but in building something better from the ruins. Something true. Something that lasts.
The scent of burnt toast pulled me from my reverie. I rushed to the kitchen, waving away the wisps of smoke rising from the toaster. Another breakfast ruined. I sighed, tossing the charred remains into the trash. It wasn't like Sam to forget about his morning ritual of perfectly golden toast and coffee. But lately, nothing about Sam seemed familiar. Mom, is everything okay? Emily's voice drifted down the stairs, tinged with concern. Just fine, honey, I called back, forcing cheerfulness into my tone. Your dad's toast got a little too crispy. I'll make him a fresh batch. As I popped 2 new slices into the toaster, I heard Sam's heavy footsteps descending the stairs. He appeared in the doorway, already dressed for work, his face buried in his phone. Morning, Sam, I said, offering a smile. Coffee's ready. He grunted in response, barely glancing up as he grabbed his travel mug and filled it. I frowned, watching him. 14 years of marriage, and this is what we'd come to? Grunts and burnt toast? Dad, Emily said, bounding into the kitchen with all the energy of her 16 years. Don't forget, Mom's birthday is next week. We need to plan something special. Sam's head snapped up, a flicker of something. Was it panic? Crossing his face. Right, of course, he muttered. We'll figure something out. I felt a twinge in my chest. He'd forgotten. Again. Actually, I interjected, trying to keep my voice light, I was thinking we could all go to that new Italian place downtown. The 3 of us, like old times. Sam's phone buzzed, and he glanced down at it, his brow furrowing. Listen, I've got to run. Big meeting this morning. We'll talk about it later, okay? Before I could respond, he was out the door, leaving behind the scent of his cologne and the ache of disappointment. Emily turned to me, her eyes narrowing. He's being weird again, isn't he? I plastered on a smile. But your father's just busy, sweetie. Work's been stressful lately. She didn't look convinced, but mercifully let it drop. I've got to go too. Chess club meeting before school. As Emily gathered her things, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Sam's distance, his forgetfulness, the way he seemed to be slipping away from us. It was like trying to hold on to smoke. Mom? Emily's voice pulled me back to the present. She was standing by the door, backpack slung over one shoulder, concern etched on her young face. Are you sure you're okay? I nodded, forcing another smile. Of course, honey. Have a great day at school. As soon as the door closed behind her, I sagged against the counter. The house felt too big, too quiet. I glanced at the calendar hanging on the fridge, my eyes landing on next week's date circled in red. My birthday, our anniversary, 14 years. Had it really been that long? I closed my eyes, remembering the day Sam proposed. We'd been so young, so in love. What had happened to that couple? The shrill ring of the phone startled me. I answered without checking the caller ID. "Hello. Mia, darling." The saccharine voice of my mother-in-law, Nancy, filled my ear. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." I bit back a sigh. "Not at all, Nancy. What can I do for you?" "Oh, I just wanted to remind you about Sam's big presentation next week. You'll make sure he has a proper breakfast that morning, won't you? You know how important this is for his career." I gritted my teeth, anger flaring in my chest. Of course, she'd remember Sam's work event, but not our anniversary. "I always make sure Sam has a good breakfast, Nancy." Of course, she said, her tone dismissive. "Well, I'll let you go. Take care, dear." The line went dead before I could respond. I set the phone down, my hands shaking slightly. Something was definitely wrong. Sam's distance, Nancy's thinly veiled disdain, the secrets that seemed to be piling up around me. I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. It was time to find out what was really going on in my family, and I knew just where to start. The day of our anniversary dawned bright and clear, but the atmosphere in our house was anything but sunny. I'd spent the past week dropping hints, hoping against hope that Sam would remember. But as I watched him rush through his morning routine, my heart sank. He hadn't even wished me a happy birthday, let alone mentioned our anniversary. "Sam," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "do you know what day it is?" He glanced at his watch, frowning. "Tuesday, isn't it? I've got that big presentation today." I felt my chest tighten. "It's our anniversary, Sam, and my birthday." His eyes widened for a moment, then he shook his head. "God, Mia, I'm sorry. I've been so swamped at work. Can we celebrate this weekend?" Before I could respond, Emily burst into the kitchen. "Happy birthday, Mom." She enveloped me in a hug, then turned to glare at her father. "Dad, don't tell me you forgot. Again." Sam had the decency to look ashamed. "I didn't forget. Look, we'll do something special this weekend, okay? I promise." Emily's eyes narrowed. "Like you promised last year? And the year before that?" "Emily," I warned, not wanting to escalate the situation. But my daughter wasn't backing down. "No, Mom, this isn't fair. Dad, you can't keep treating Mom like this. It's not right." Sam's face hardened. "That's enough, Emily. This is between your mother and me." "Is it?" Emily shot back. "Because it seems like you don't care about either of us anymore." The tension in the room was palpable. I watched as Sam's jaw clenched, his eyes darting between Emily and me. For a moment, I thought he might explode. Instead, he grabbed his briefcase and headed for the door. "I don't have time for this," he muttered. "I'll be late for work." As the door slammed behind him, Emily turned to me, her eyes brimming with tears. "I'm sorry, Mom. I shouldn't have said anything." I pulled her into a hug, fighting back my own tears. "It's okay, sweetie. You were just standing up for me." We stood there for a moment, holding each other. When Emily pulled away, there was a determined look in her eyes that I'd never seen before. "This isn't right, Mom," she said quietly. "Something's going on with Dad, and I'm going to find out what it is." I felt a chill run down my spine. "Emily, honey, I appreciate your concern, but this is adult stuff. You don't need to get involved." She shook her head. "I'm not a kid anymore, Mom. I can see what's happening, and I'm not going to sit by and watch Dad hurt you." Before I could argue further, she grabbed her backpack and headed out. I was left alone in the kitchen, my mind reeling. What had happened to my family? When had things gotten so bad that my teenage daughter felt she needed to protect me? The phone rang, startling me out of my thoughts. It was Nancy. "Mia, dear," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "I hope you're not too disappointed about Sam forgetting your anniversary. You know how men can be." I gritted my teeth. "It's fine, Nancy. We're going to celebrate this weekend." She laughed, the sound grating on my nerves. "Oh, I wouldn't count on that. Sam mentioned he might have to work late. Such a shame." As I hung up the phone, a terrible thought occurred to me. What if Sam hadn't forgotten at all? What if he was deliberately avoiding our anniversary? I glanced at the calendar, my eyes landing on the circled date. 14 years of marriage, and this is what we'd come to. Forgotten anniversaries, tense silences, and a daughter determined to uncover her father's secrets. Something had to change. And as I stood there in my empty kitchen, I made a decision. If Sam wouldn't fight for our marriage, then I would. Even if it meant uncovering truths I wasn't sure I was ready to face. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong in my family. Sam's coldness, Nancy's thinly veiled hostility, and now Emily's determination to uncover the truth. It all pointed to a storm brewing just beneath the surface of our seemingly perfect life. As I tidied up the kitchen, my mind raced with possibilities. Was Sam having an affair? Was he planning to leave us? The thought made my stomach churn. The sound of the front door opening startled me out of my reverie. Emily burst in, her face flushed with excitement. "Mom, you won't believe what I found out," she exclaimed, dropping her backpack on the floor. I felt a mixture of curiosity and dread. "What is it, honey?" Emily hesitated, biting her lip. I followed Dad after school today. He didn't go back to work like he said he would." My heart sank. "Emily, you shouldn't be spying on your father." "But Mom, listen." She pulled out her phone, tapping furiously. "I saw him meet this woman at a cafe. They looked close, too close." She held out her phone, showing me a blurry photo. My breath caught in my throat. There was Sam, sitting at a table with a young, attractive blonde woman. Their heads were bent close together, his hand resting on hers. "Oh, Emily," I whispered, my voice breaking. "You shouldn't have seen this." Her eyes flashed with determination. "Someone had to do something, Mom. Dad's been lying to us, and I'm going to prove it." I felt a surge of pride mixed with fear. My daughter was so brave, so loyal, but I was terrified of what her investigation might uncover. "Sweetie, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but this isn't your responsibility," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Your father and I will work things out." Emily shook her head stubbornly. "No, Mom. You've been saying that for months, and nothing's changed. I'm not going to sit back and watch him hurt you anymore." Before I could respond, we heard the sound of a car pulling into the driveway. Sam was home early. "Quick, hide the phone," I hissed, my heart racing. Emily slipped it into her pocket just as Sam walked through the door. He paused, looking between us suspiciously. "What's going on here?" I forced a smile. "Nothing, dear. Emily was just telling me about her day at school." Sam's eyes narrowed, but he didn't push it. "Right. Well, I've got some work to finish up in my study. Don't wait up for me for dinner." As he disappeared upstairs, Emily turned to me, her eyes blazing. "See, Mom? More lies. He wasn't at work. He was with that woman." I felt torn between my instinct to protect my daughter and my growing suspicion that she might be right. "Emily, please, promise me you won't do anything rash. Let me handle this." She hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. "Okay, Mom, but if you don't do something soon, I will." That night, as I lay awake in bed, Sam sighed cold and empty beside me, I couldn't stop thinking about the photo Emily had shown me. Who was that woman? What did she mean to Sam? I heard the creak of Sam's office door opening, followed by his hushed voice. He was on the phone again, speaking in low, urgent tones. Unable to resist, I crept to the hallway, straining to hear. "Can't keep this up much longer, Lisa," Sam was saying. "Mia's getting suspicious, and Emily's been asking questions. We need to move up our timeline." My blood ran cold. Lisa, the woman from the cafe, and a timeline? What were they planning? I know, Sam continued, his voice dropping even lower. "But we have to be careful. If Mia finds out before we're ready, she could ruin everything." I stumbled back to bed, my mind reeling. Sam was definitely having an affair, but it was more than that. They were planning something that could destroy our family. As I lay there in the dark, tears silently streaming down my face, I made a decision. Emily was right. It was time to uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Tomorrow, I would start my own investigation, and God help Sam if what I discovered was as bad as I feared. The next morning, I woke with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in months. Sam had already left for work, or so he claimed. I couldn't be sure of anything anymore. I waited until Emily left for school before starting my investigation. My hands shook as I entered Sam's study, a room that had become increasingly off-limits over the past few months. I felt like an intruder in my own home. As I rifled through his desk drawers, my heart pounding, I came across a stack of bank statements. My eyes widened as I scanned the numbers. Large sums of money had been transferred to an account I didn't recognize. Was this how Sam was funding his affair? The sound of the front door opening made me jump. I quickly shoved the papers back into the drawer and rushed out of the study. "Mom?" Emily called. "Are you home?" I took a deep breath, composing myself before answering. "In the kitchen, honey. What are you doing home so early?" Emily appeared in the doorway, her face pale. I skipped last period. I need to show you something. She pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling slightly, as she pulled up a series of text messages. I hacked into Dad's phone records. Emily, I gasped, torn between shock at her actions and dread at what she might have discovered. I know. But look, Mom. She thrust the phone into my hands. As I scrolled through the messages, my world tilted on its axis. There were dozens of texts between Sam and someone named Lisa. The same Lisa I'd heard him talking to on the phone. He's planning to leave us, Mom, Emily whispered, her voice breaking. He and Lisa, they're talking about buying a house together. I felt like I couldn't breathe. All those times Sam had been working late or on business trips flashed through my mind. How long had this been going on? There's more, Emily said, her voice barely audible. Grandma Nancy is involved somehow. Look at these messages. I scrolled further, my hands shaking. There it was, in black and white. Nancy was helping Sam plan his exit strategy. They were discussing lawyers, asset division, even custody arrangements for Emily. Oh God, I whispered, sinking into a chair. How could they do this to us? Emily knelt beside me, taking my hand. We can't let them get away with this, Mom. We have to fight back. I looked at my daughter, seeing the fierce determination in her eyes. She was so young, yet she was showing more strength than I felt capable of at that moment. You're right, I said, squeezing her hand. But we need to be smart about this. We can't let them know we're on to them. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sam. Working late tonight? Don't wait up. I showed it to Emily, who scoffed. Yeah, right. Working late with Lisa, more like. An idea struck me. Emily, do you think you could track his phone? Find out where he really is? She nodded, a glint in her eye. Already on it, Mom. I installed a tracking app on his phone last week. I felt a mixture of pride and concern at my daughter's resourcefulness. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We'll gather as much evidence as we can. Bank statements, phone records, everything. But we have to be careful. If Sam or Nancy suspect anything, they might accelerate their plans. Emily nodded solemnly. I won't let you down, Mom. We're in this together. As we sat there, plotting our next move, I felt a surge of determination. Sam and Nancy thought they could destroy our family without a fight. They were about to learn how wrong they were. One more thing, I said, my voice steady. We need to find out who this Lisa is. If she's working with Sam, she might have access to information we don't. Emily's eyes lit up. Leave that to me. I'll do some digging at Dad's office tomorrow after school. I hesitated, worried about involving Emily too deeply, but I realized I needed her help. We were in this together, mother and daughter against the world. As night fell and Sam still hadn't returned home, I made a decision. It was time to take control of my life and protect what was mine. Whatever Sam and Nancy were planning, they were about to discover that Mia Anderson was not a woman to be underestimated. The next few days were a blur of covert operations and mounting tension. Emily and I moved like spies in our own home, gathering evidence and piecing together the puzzle of Sam's betrayal. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon when Sam announced he was taking Emily out for ice cream. My daughter shot me a knowing look before leaving with her father. I knew she was planning to confront him, to try and get more information. My heart raced as I watched them drive away. Hours passed, and the silence in the house became oppressive. Just as I was about to call Emily's cell, I heard the front door open. Sam's voice drifted in, uncharacteristically warm and jovial. That was fun, wasn't it, sweetheart? We should do this more often. Emily's response was muffled, but I could hear the strain in her voice. When they entered the living room, I was shocked by what I saw. Emily's eyes were red-rimmed, and she wouldn't meet my gaze. Sam, on the other hand, was beaming. Mia, honey, he said, his tone sickeningly sweet. Emily and I had a great talk. She understands now that sometimes adults need to make difficult decisions for the good of the family. I felt my blood run cold. What are you talking about, Sam? He put his arm around Emily's shoulders, and I saw her flinch. Tell your mother what we discussed, sweetheart. Emily looked up, her eyes filled with tears and something else, fear. Mom, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, I think maybe it would be best if I went to live with Dad and Grandma Nancy for a while. The world tilted beneath my feet. What? Emily, what are you saying? Sam's grip on Emily's shoulder tightened. Now, Mia, don't get upset. Emily and I agree that she needs a more stable environment. You've been, well, let's just say you haven't been yourself lately. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How had Sam managed to turn my own daughter against me? Emily, honey, you don't mean that. What did he say to you? Before Emily could respond, Sam cut in. That's enough, Mia. You're only proving my point. Emily, why don't you go to your room? Your mother and I need to talk. As soon as Emily was out of earshot, I rounded on Sam. What the hell did you do to her? What lies have you been telling? Sam's facade of kindness vanished. Face it, Mia. You're losing control. Emily sees it, I see it, and soon everyone else will too. It's time to face facts. You're not fit to be a mother anymore. I felt like I'd been slapped. You bastard, I hissed. You're trying to take my daughter away from me. He smirked, a cold, calculated expression that sent chills down my spine. I'm doing what's best for Emily, and if you try to fight this, I'll make sure everyone knows just how unstable you've become. As Sam walked away, leaving me stunned and shaking, I heard a soft sound from the stairway. Emily stood there, her face pale but determined. She held up her phone, and I realized with a jolt that she had recorded the entire conversation. I'm so sorry, Mom, she whispered. I had to make him think I was on his side, but I got it all. Everything he said, everything he threatened. Relief washed over me, quickly followed by a surge of fierce pride. My daughter, my brave, clever girl, had outmaneuvered Sam at his own game. I pulled Emily into a tight hug, feeling her trembling against me. It's okay, sweetheart, you did good, but now we need to act fast. As we stood there, holding each other, I knew we had reached a turning point. Sam had shown his true colors, and there was no going back. It was time to take the gloves off and fight with everything we had. I looked into Emily's eyes, seeing the same determination reflected there. Pack a bag, I said quietly. We're leaving tonight. It's not safe here anymore. Emily nodded, her jaw set. Where will we go? I took a deep breath, my mind racing. I have an idea, but first we need to make a stop. It's time we paid a visit to Lisa. My heart pounded as Emily and I crept down the stairs, our packed bags slung over our shoulders. Sam's snores echoed from the bedroom, oblivious to our escape plan. Just as we reached the front door, my phone buzzed. I froze, terrified it might wake Sam, but the snoring continued uninterrupted. Glancing at the screen, I saw it was a call from Emily's phone. Confused, I looked at my daughter, who shrugged, her own phone clutched tightly in her hand. With trembling fingers, I answered the call. Hello? I whispered. Mom? Emily's voice came through the speaker, but it wasn't the Emily standing next to me. This voice was panicked, breathless. Mom, help me, Dad's gone crazy. He's talking about taking me away, saying you're unfit. I'm scared, Mom. I don't know what to do. I felt the blood drain from my face. Sam must have cloned Emily's phone, creating this recording to use against me. But why was it calling me now? Suddenly, the bedroom door flew open. Sam stood there, his face a mask of triumph. Got you, he snarled. Kidnapping our daughter in the middle of the night? Tsk, tsk, tsk. Mia, that's not going to look good in court. Emily stepped forward, her voice steady despite her pale face. It's not kidnapping if I want to leave, Dad, and I have proof of what you're really up to. Sam's eyes widened for a moment before narrowing dangerously. Give me that phone, Emily, now. No, I shouted, pushing Emily behind me. You're not touching her or her phone. It's over, Sam. We know everything. About Lisa, about your plans with your mother. It's all recorded. For a moment, Sam looked genuinely frightened. Then his face hardened. You've got nothing, he spat. It's your word against mine. And who do you think they'll believe? The respected businessman or the unstable housewife? Just then another voice joined the fray. They'll believe me, Sam. We all turned to see Nancy standing in the doorway, her face ashen. I can't do this anymore, she said, her voice trembling. I thought I was helping you, but this is wrong. Sam's face contorted with rage. Mother, what are you doing here? Stay out of this. Nancy shook her head, tears in her eyes. No, Sam, I'm calling Lisa right now. We're going to tell Mia everything. As if on cue, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a video call from an unknown number. With shaking hands I answered it. Lisa's face appeared on the screen, her eyes red-rimmed. Mia, she said, her voice hoarse. There's something you need to know. Sam, he's been lying to all of us. Over the next few minutes, as Sam raged and threatened, the truth came pouring out. Lisa hadn't known Sam was married when their affair began. When she found out, Sam had spun a tale of an abusive, unstable wife. He'd manipulated everyone, Lisa, Nancy, even Emily, playing them against each other to get what he wanted. He told me he loved me, Lisa sobbed. That we'd be a family with Emily, but it was all lies. He's been embezzling from the company, Mia. He needed your assets to cover it up before anyone found out. I felt like the ground was crumbling beneath my feet. The extent of Sam's betrayal was staggering. Suddenly, Sam lunged for my phone. "Give me that," he roared. In the chaos that followed, several things happened at once. Emily screamed. Nancy tried to restrain Sam, and I, acting on pure instinct, swung my bag with all my might. It connected with Sam's head with a sickening thud, and he crumpled to the floor. For a moment, we all stood in stunned silence. Then Emily's voice, small but determined, broke through the shock. "Mom," she said, holding up her phone. "I got it all. Every word, every confession, it's over." As sirens wailed in the distance, Nancy must have called the police. I pulled Emily close, my mind reeling. We'd won, but at what cost? Our lives would never be the same. As I held my daughter, I realized this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a new, uncertain chapter in our lives. The next few hours passed in a blur of police sirens, questioning, and barely contained chaos. As dawn broke, I found myself sitting in our living room, surrounded by officers and a sea of evidence. Emily sat beside me, her hand clutched tightly in mine, while Sam was escorted out in handcuffs, shouting threats and accusations. Just when I thought the storm had passed, Emily turned to me, her eyes filled with a mix of determination and fear. "Mom," she whispered, "there's something I need to tell you, about everything that's happened." My heart clenched. What more could there possibly be? "What is it, sweetie?" Emily took a deep breath. "It wasn't just luck or coincidence that we uncovered Dad's plans. I've been working on this for months, ever since I overheard him talking to Grandma Nancy about getting rid of you." I felt the room spin. Months? But how? "I planted bugs in Dad's office," Emily confessed, her voice barely audible. "I hacked his emails, his phone. I even pretended to be on his side sometimes to get more information." The realization hit me like a tidal wave. All those times Emily had seemed distant, all those secret conversations with Sam, it had all been part of her plan. "Oh, Emily," I breathed, torn between pride and horror. "You shouldn't have had to do that. You're just a child." She shook her head fiercely. "No, Mom, I'm not just a child. I'm your daughter, and I wasn't going to let him destroy our family." Before I could respond, a detective approached us. "Mrs. Anderson, we need to talk about the evidence your daughter has collected. Some of it, well, it might not be admissible in court due to how it was obtained." My blood ran cold. "What are you saying?" The detective sighed. "Your husband's lawyer could argue that the evidence was collected illegally. It could potentially be thrown out." Emily jumped to her feet. "No, you can't let him get away with this. I did what I had to do." As the detective tried to calm Emily down, I felt a presence behind me. It was Nancy, her face drawn and pale. "Mia," she said softly, "I know I have no right to ask this, but please, let me help. I can testify against Sam. I know everything he was planning." I stared at her, conflicting emotions warring within me. This woman had been my enemy for so long, had helped Sam plot against me, but now she might be our only hope. "Why?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Why would you turn against your own son?" Nancy's eyes filled with tears. "Because what he did was wrong, and because I see now how much damage I've done. To you, to Emily, to this family. I want to make it right." As I grappled with this unexpected turn of events, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Lisa. "Mia, I'm so sorry for everything. I want to help. I have proof of Sam's embezzlement. Meet me at the cafe in an hour?" I showed the message to the detective, who nodded grimly. This could be the break we need. "But Mrs. Anderson, you need to understand the risks. If we pursue this, your whole life will be under scrutiny. Every decision you've made, every action you've taken, it will all come out in court." I looked at Emily, her young face etched with worry and determination. I thought of all she had sacrificed, all she had endured. Then I looked at Nancy, seeing for the first time not an enemy, but a woman who had made terrible mistakes and wanted to atone. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. The path ahead would be difficult, fraught with legal battles and public scrutiny. But for the sake of my daughter, for the truth, I had to see it through. "I'll do it," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "Whatever it takes, I'll fight. For Emily, for justice, for our future." As I stood up, ready to face whatever came next, I felt a strength I hadn't known I possessed. Sam had tried to break me, to paint me as unstable and unfit, but he had underestimated me. He had underestimated us all. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in months, I felt hope. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew I wouldn't face them alone. With Emily by my side and unexpected allies in Nancy and Lisa, I was ready to reclaim my life and my dignity. Let Sam and his lawyers do their worst. We had the truth on our side, and I was done being a victim. It was time to become a fighter. The courtroom fell silent as the judge prepared to deliver the verdict. I sat there, my heart pounding, Emily's hand clasped tightly in mine. The past few months had been a whirlwind of legal battles, media scrutiny, and emotional turmoil. But now, finally, it was all coming to an end. "In the case of the state versus Samuel Anderson," the judge began, her voice echoing through the packed room, "this court finds the defendant guilty on all charges." A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. I felt Emily's grip tighten, heard her whispered "yes" beside me, but I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. It was over. We'd won. As the judge continued, listing Sam's crimes, embezzlement, conspiracy, attempted fraud, I found my gaze drawn to him. The man I'd loved for 14 years, the father of my child, sat there, his face ashen, all pretense of charm and innocence stripped away. When the sentencing was announced, 15 years in prison, Sam finally looked at me. In his eyes I saw a flicker of the man I'd once known, quickly extinguished by a cold hatred that made me shudder. Outside the courthouse, surrounded by a sea of reporters and flashing cameras, I felt oddly calm. Emily stood beside me, her chin raised defiantly, while Nancy hung back, her face a mask of shame and regret. "Mrs. Anderson," a reporter called out, "how does it feel to have your name cleared?" I took a deep breath, thinking of all we'd been through. "It feels liberating," I said, my voice stronger than I'd expected. "But this isn't just about clearing my name. It's about justice, about standing up to those who abuse their power and betray the trust of others." As we made our way through the crowd, I caught sight of Lisa. Our eyes met, and she gave me a small, sad smile. In that moment, I realized that we were all victims of Sam's manipulation, all scarred by his betrayal. Later that evening, as Emily and I sat in our new apartment, a fresh start away from the memories of our old life, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. "Mom," Emily said softly, "I'm sorry for all the secrecy, for not telling you everything from the beginning. I wanted to protect you." I pulled her close, marveling at her strength and maturity. "Oh, sweetheart, you have nothing to apologize for. You saved us both." A knock at the door interrupted us. To my surprise, it was Nancy, looking older and more vulnerable than I'd ever seen her. "Mia," she said, her voice trembling, "I know I have no right to be here, but I wanted to thank you for allowing me to testify, and to apologize for everything." I studied her for a moment, seeing not the manipulative mother-in-law I'd known for years, but a broken woman seeking redemption. "Nancy," I said slowly, "what you did was wrong. But in the end, you chose to do the right thing. That counts for something." As Nancy left, wiping tears from her eyes, I turned back to Emily. "Well," I said, managing a smile, "it looks like it's just you and me now, kiddo. What do you say we order some pizza and start planning our future?" Emily grinned, a spark of her old self shining through. "Can we get extra cheese?" I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in months. "Extra cheese it is." As we sat there, eating pizza and talking about everything and nothing, I realized that this moment of simple joy with my daughter was what I'd been fighting for all along. Sam had tried to take everything from me, but he'd failed. I was stronger than he'd ever imagined, and so was Emily. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, setbacks, days when the weight of what we'd been through would feel overwhelming. But we'd face it together, mother and daughter, survivors and fighters. As I looked at Emily, her face animated as she talked about her plans for the future, I felt a surge of pride and love so strong it almost took my breath away. We'd been through hell, but we'd emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than ever. Sam had underestimated us both. He'd thought he could break us, control us, mold us into what he wanted us to be. But in the end, it was his world that had crumbled, while ours battered but unbroken, remained standing. As the night wore on and Emily drifted off to sleep on the couch, I stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. Free to be myself, to love my daughter, to build the life we deserved. Sam had tried to write our story, but we'd taken back the pen. And now, finally, we were ready to start a new chapter. One filled with hope, strength, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her daughter.
I stand at my mother's grave, counting lies instead of flowers. 364 days of marriage, built on pretty words and hollow promises, all crumbling like the earth beneath my feet. The roses in my hands are starting to wilt, just like everything else Lucas touches. My name is Bailey, and I used to believe in fairy tales. Now I know better. Darling, we should head back to the house. Lucas's hand settles on my shoulder, warm and possessive. Your mother wouldn't want you standing out here all day. The laugh that bubbles up tastes bitter. Funny how everyone suddenly knows exactly what my mother would want. I shrug off his touch, watching his reflection in the polished granite. He's wearing the perfect grieving son-in-law expression, but his eyes keep darting toward the parking lot, where his mother waits in her Mercedes. Helen's prepared a lovely reception, he says, as if reading my thoughts. Everyone's waiting. Of course they are. Helen Evans never misses an opportunity to play the gracious matriarch, especially now that there's a business empire up for grabs. I've seen the way she circles my mother's legacy like a vulture, dropping hints about helping me manage the company, about how overwhelming it must all be. I need a minute, I tell Lucas, and he retreats with practiced understanding, always so careful to play his part in public. The funeral crowd has thinned, but I catch snippets of their whispers. Poor Bailey, they say. First her father, now her mother. Thank goodness she has Lucas and Helen to lean on. I dig my nails into my palms until the pain drowns out their voices. Uncle Paul appears at my side, solid and real, in a way that makes my chest ache. Ready to face the wolves, he asks quietly. I heard them, you know. The words slip out before I can stop them. Last night in the study, Lucas and Helen. Paul goes very still. What did you hear? Enough. I smooth my black dress, buying time. Helen was angry about something, the timing being wrong. Lucas kept saying they needed to wait, that I wasn't ready to discuss the company yet. My throat closes around the rest. How Lucas had sounded nothing like my husband. How his voice had carried that same calculating tone Helen uses when discussing acquisitions. Bailey, Paul starts, but I cut him off. Did Mom ever tell you about her suspicions? He hesitates, and in that pause, I hear everything my mother never said aloud. All those worried glances, the way she'd started reviewing company documents with increasing urgency after my engagement. Your mother was very good at reading people, he finally says, and very good at protecting what mattered. A burst of laughter drifts over from the parking lot. Helen's holding court by her car, Lucas at her side. The perfect mother-son duo, sharing some private joke while my mother lies cold in the ground. I need access to everything, I tell Paul. Every account, every contract, every piece of paper with the company's name on it. You think they're planning something? I turn to face him fully. I think my husband married me for more than just love, and I think it's time I found out exactly what my mother was trying to protect me from. Paul studies me for a long moment, then nods. Come by the office tomorrow. We'll start with the audit your mother ordered 3 months ago. She ordered an audit? Yes. His smile is grim. And made me promise not to tell anyone until now. I look back at Lucas and Helen, their heads bent together in consultation. My mother's final gift wasn't just the company, it was a warning. Tomorrow then, I say, straightening my spine. It's time to see what my loving family's been hiding. The audit files spread across Paul's desk like a map of betrayal. Every highlighted transaction, every questionable transfer tells its own story. My coffee grows cold as I trace the pattern emerging from my mother's careful notes. She knew, I whisper, more to myself than to Paul. She knew, and she was building a case. Paul leans back in his chair, his face carved with shadows. Your mother started noticing discrepancies 6 months ago. Small amounts at first, then larger transfers. All perfectly documented, but what? The authorizations look legitimate. They have your signature. My stomach drops. That's impossible. The office door swings open, and Helen glides in like she owns the place. Lucas trails behind her, his usual easy smile nowhere in sight. Bailey, darling, we've been looking everywhere for you. Helen's voice drips honey, but her eyes are sharp as she surveys the papers scattered across the desk. Shouldn't you be resting? It's only been 3 days since the funeral. I slide the most damning documents under a folder. Just getting my bearings, Helen. The company won't run itself. Oh, sweetheart. She settles into the chair beside me, uninvited. That's exactly what we wanted to discuss. Lucas and I have been talking, and we think it might be best to consider selling. The room goes still. Even Paul stops pretending to organize his files. Selling. My voice sounds distant to my own ears. Lucas steps forward, hands spread, in what's meant to be a placating gesture. It's just, you're dealing with so much right now. The grief, the responsibility. Nobody expects you to shoulder this burden alone. Burden? The word tastes like acid. This company is my mother's legacy. Was. Helen corrects softly. Was her legacy. And now it's time to think about your future. Our future. She reaches for my hand, but I pull away. Bailey, Lucas tries again. Be reasonable. You've never even worked in corporate management. The board members answer to me now. I stand, needing the height advantage. And I'm not selling. Helen's mask slips for just a moment, something ugly flashing in her eyes. You're being emotional. This is business. No, I say. This is family, and you're not it. Lucas flinches like I've slapped him. Good. I think. Paul interrupts smoothly. We should table this discussion until Bailey's had time to review all the necessary documentation. Legal requirements, you understand. Helen rises, straightening her designer jacket. Of course, we only want what's best for Bailey. She pauses at the door. Oh, and darling, don't forget the charity gala tomorrow night. The board members will all be there, and appearances are so important right now. After they leave, I sink back into my chair, hands shaking. Well, Paul says quietly, that confirms it. They're after the company, have been all along. I pull out my phone, scrolling through photos until I find what I'm looking for. A picture from last year's Christmas party. Look at this. Helen, talking to James Morton from the board. 6 months before Lucas and I even met. Paul leans in. Could be coincidence. Like these forged signatures? Like the fact that Lucas proposed right after Mom's diagnosis. I laugh, and it sounds hollow even to me. Some coincidences feel an awful lot like conspiracy. My phone buzzes. A text from Chloe. Found something. Meet me at the usual spot. ASAP. I gather the audit files, my mind already racing ahead. I need copies of everything. And Paul? Don't let anyone else access these records, especially not Lucas or Helen. Bailey. Paul's voice stops me at the door. Your mother, she wanted to protect you from this, from them. I know. I think of Helen's perfectly manicured hands, reaching for my mother's company, of Lucas's practiced concerned expression. But she's not here to fight them anymore. I am. The elevator doors close on Paul's worried face, and I check my phone again. Whatever Chloe's found, I hope it's enough to start dismantling the careful web of lies my husband and his mother have woven around me. Because tomorrow night at the gala, I'm done playing the grieving daughter they can manipulate. It's time to show them exactly whose daughter I really am. Chloe's hands tremble as she slides the USB drive across the coffee shop table. You need to see this now. Her voice carries none of its usual warmth. I had to call in 3 favors to get these bank records. I plug the drive into my laptop, and my world shifts on its axis. Transaction after transaction, all perfectly disguised as legitimate business expenses, flowing from company accounts into a maze of offshore holdings. At the center of it all, a familiar name, Evans Investment Group. There's more, Chloe says, tapping the screen. Look at the dates. The first transfer was made 2 weeks before Lucas asked me to marry him. The most recent, yesterday. My coffee cup shatters against the floor. Several patrons turn to stare, but I barely notice. How much? Total? Almost 4 million. Chloe reaches for my hand. Bailey, there's something else. I found emails between Helen and Lucas from before you met. They planned everything. The walls of the coffee shop seem to close in. I remember Lucas's first accidental meeting at my mother's charity event. How smoothly he'd worked his way into my life, into my heart. My phone buzzes. Lucas calling again. I silence it, but not before noticing 6 missed calls from Helen. I have to go to the office, I say, standing abruptly. The gala preparations. Screw the gala. Chloe's voice cuts through my haze. You need to call the police. Not yet. The clarity of that decision surprises me. I need to hear him say it. The drive to the office passes in a blur. When I arrive, Lucas is waiting in my office, looking perfectly at ease behind her desk. Where have you been? He stands, coming around to kiss me, but I step back. Helen's been trying to reach you about the gala arrangements. $4 million. He freezes. What? That's how much you and Helen have stolen so far. My voice sounds strange, detached. Was that the price tag on our marriage? Or did you charge extra for pretending to love me? Color drains from his face. Bailey, I can explain. Please do. Start with the emails, planning how you'd seduce the grieving daughter of a dying CEO. Or maybe explain how you forged my signature on those transfers. It wasn't like that. He runs his hands through his hair, a gesture I once found endearing. At first, yes, it was Helen's idea. The company was struggling. The laugh that escapes me sounds nothing like my own. There is no we, Lucas. There never was. I fell in love with you. He steps forward, desperate now. Yes, it started as a plan, but I really do love you. Helen pushed me into it. But you just kept stealing anyway? I pull out my phone, showing him the transaction records. Yesterday's transfer says otherwise. The mask slips entirely. His face hardens, becomes something I've never seen before. What do you want? The truth. For once, he laughs. Ugly and sharp. Fine. The truth? You were an easy mark. Daddy dead, mommy dying. So desperate for someone to love you that you never questioned anything. Helen said you'd be simple to handle, and she was right. Each word lands like a physical blow, but I force myself to stand straight. And now, his smile turns cruel. Now you're going to sign over controlling interest in the company, or Helen will make sure everyone knows about your mental breakdown after your mother's death. How you've been making irrational accusations, becoming paranoid. The board already thinks you're unstable. It won't take much to convince them. I reach for my desk phone, hitting the speaker button. Did you get all that, Paul? Lucas whirls around. Paul stands in the doorway, phone in hand, recording. Behind him, Helen's face has gone chalk white. Every word, Paul says quietly. Lucas lunges for the phone, but I'm already backing away, watching their carefully constructed world begin to crumble. Bailey, Helen starts, but I cut her off. The police are on their way. I suggest you both start practicing your explanations. I walk past them, head high. Oh, and Helen, don't worry about the gala. I'll make sure to tell everyone exactly why you couldn't attend. The police interview room feels smaller with each passing hour. Detective Martinez slides another photo across the table. Surveillance footage of Helen entering the company building late at night, 3 weeks before my mother's death. Mrs. Evans claims she had your authorization, Martinez says. Says you've been making rash decisions since your mother's diagnosis. My fingernails dig into my palms. And you believe her? What I believe doesn't matter. What matters is the board meeting she's called for tomorrow morning. The words hit like ice water. Paul bursts through the door before I can respond. Bailey, don't say another word. Detective, this interview is over. Outside, the evening air does nothing to clear my head. Paul grips my elbow, steering me toward his car. Helen's been busy. She's convinced 3 board members you're emotionally unstable. She can't. She already has. The emergency meeting is to vote on temporary leadership during your recovery period. His voice hardens. They're going to try to force you out. My phone chirps. A text from Lucas. It doesn't have to be this way. Meet me at home, please. Home. The word tastes like ash now. I need to get something from the house, I tell Paul. He starts to protest, but I cut him off. I know what I'm doing. The house is dark when I arrive, except for my mother's study. Lucas waits there, looking perfectly at ease in the room where I first kissed him, where he proposed, where my mother. You're sitting in her chair, I say. He doesn't move. Bailey, you're making this harder than it needs to be. Helen's offering a generous settlement. Walk away now. Keep your dignity intact. My dignity. Something burns behind my eyes. You married me for money, stole from my family, and now you're threatening my dignity. I'm trying to protect you. He stands, agitated. You think you know everything? Your mother wasn't the saint you imagine. Ask yourself why she really ordered that audit. Why she was meeting with corporate raiders behind closed doors. The room tilts slightly. What are you talking about? She was selling pieces of the company in secret. Helen found out, tried to stop her. Everything we did was to save this company from your mother's mistakes. I moved to my mother's desk, running my fingers along the wooden edge. You're lying. Check the safe. Behind the painting. The proof's all there. My hand freezes on the desk. How do you know about the safe? Lucas's face changes, just for a moment. A flash of something ugly, before the mask slips back into place. Because, a new voice says, I told him. Helen stands in the doorway, elegant as ever in her designer suit. Your mother got sloppy near the end. Started keeping records of her little side deals. We couldn't let her destroy everything we'd built. We? The pieces click into horrible place. You were business partners? Until she decided to go ethical on us. Helen's laugh is soft and cruel. Started talking about legacy and family values. She would have ruined everything. My fingers find the button under the desk. The one my mother showed me years ago. A silent alarm, she'd said. Just in case. The audit, I say slowly. She wasn't investigating Lucas's transfers. She was building a case against you. Smart girl. Helen moves closer. But not smart enough. Sign the company over tomorrow, or every dirty secret your mother tried to hide goes public. Her reputation, your family name, all of it burns. You really think you've won, don't you? I lean against the desk, feeling the weight of my mother's letter opener against my palm. But you forgot something important. And what's that? I smile, hearing sirens in the distance. My mother taught me to record everything. The study door bursts open. Detective Martinez leads the charge, officers flooding in with weapons drawn. As they read rights and snap handcuffs, I pull out my phone, stopping the recording app. Bailey, Lucas calls as they lead him away. You don't understand what you're doing. But I do. For the first time since my mother died, I understand perfectly. I pick up her framed photo from the desk. I promised to protect your legacy, Mom. I just didn't know from whom. The bail hearing takes less than an hour. I watch Helen and Lucas walk free, their lawyer's smug smile burning into my back as I leave the courthouse. Paul catches up to me on the steps. They won't stay free for long, he says. The evidence isn't enough. I keep walking, my heels clicking against marble. Helen's already spinning the story. Poor grieving daughter, imagining conspiracies, desperate for someone to blame. My phone buzzes. Another reporter asking for comment. Third one today. I silence it just as Chloe pulls up in her car. Board meeting in 30 minutes, she says as we climb in. And Bailey, it's bad, really bad. The executive floor is unusually quiet when we arrive. James Morton, head of the board, intercepts us before we reach the conference room. Bailey, a word. His office smells of expensive leather and victory. Helen's legal team contacted us this morning. They're filing a countersuit, defamation, harassment, malicious prosecution. Let them. They have documentation suggesting your mother was involved in insider trading. He slides a folder across his desk, dating back 5 years. My hands shake as I open it. Emails, contracts, meeting notes, all carefully selected to paint my mother as a criminal. These are fake, are they? James leans forward. Because Helen has witnesses willing to testify, respected business associates who'll swear your mother was cutting illegal deals for years. And let me guess, this all goes away if I step down. The board would consider it a gesture of good faith. I stand, the chair scraping against hardwood. The meeting starts in 10 minutes. I'll give you my answer then. Paul and Chloe wait outside, faces grim. How bad? Paul asks. They're trying to destroy her reputation. My voice cracks. Everything she built, everything she stood for. Bailey. Chloe grabs my arm. Look. Through the glass walls of the conference room, I see Helen talking quietly with board members. Lucas stands nearby, that familiar charming smile in place. They've already won them over. I need 5 minutes, I tell them. Heading for my mother's office, our office. Inside, I sink into her chair, breathing in the lingering scent of her perfume. The photo on her desk shows us at my wedding, both of us smiling, neither knowing the snake we'd welcomed into our family. My phone buzzes again. Unknown number. Miss Turner? A woman's voice. Unfamiliar. My name is Sarah Chen. I worked with your mother's private investigator. The world stops. What private investigator? The one she hired 6 months ago to investigate Helen Evans. I have files, recordings, photographs, financial records, things your mother couldn't access officially. My heart pounds. Why are you calling now? Because Helen's people just offered me money to destroy everything. A pause. Your mother was kind to me once. I'd rather give you the truth. I checked the time. 3 minutes until the meeting. Where? I'm parked behind the building. Blue sedan. I text Paul. Stall the meeting. Trust me. The service elevator takes me to the parking garage. A middle-aged Asian woman stands beside a blue car, holding a thick envelope. Your mother knew, she says, handing it over, about Helen's past companies, the bankruptcies, the fraud charges that disappeared. She was building a case, but she ran out of time. Inside the envelope, I find what I need. Proof of Helen's pattern, her history of corporate takeovers and destroyed lives, and something else. Surveillance photos of Helen meeting with my mother's doctors weeks before her condition suddenly worsened. There's more, Sarah says softly. About your mother's last days. Cold certainty settles in my chest. Send everything to this address. I hand her my lawyer's card. And Sarah, thank you. The elevator feels different going up. I'm my mother's daughter, after all, and it's time to show Helen Evans exactly what that means. I walk into the board meeting, 10 minutes late, Helen's smirk fading as she sees my face. I don't look at the board members, or Paul, or even Lucas. I look straight at her as I set the envelope on the table. So, I say quietly, shall we discuss my mother's last days, Helen? The surveillance photos scatter across the boardroom table like playing cards. Helen's face remains composed, but her knuckles whiten around her water glass. These meetings with Dr. Richards, I say, my voice steady despite the rage burning in my chest. They happened 2 weeks before my mother's condition suddenly deteriorated. Lucas starts to stand. Bailey, you can't possibly. Sit down. The command comes from James Morton, his earlier smugness replaced by something harder. Mrs. Evans, explain these photographs. Helen's laugh sounds brittle. Really, Bailey? Accusing me of what? Murder. This is exactly the kind of unstable behavior we've been concerned about. I slide another document forward. Dr. Richards made a very large deposit the day after my mother's death. The money came from one of your shell companies. The room goes deadly quiet. Paul moves closer to the door, blocking it. Helen's lawyer whispers urgently in her ear, but she waves him off. You want to play this game? Her voice drops to a whisper. Fine. Your mother was weak, sentimental. She was going to destroy everything we'd built, expose our arrangements with overseas investors. I simply accelerated the inevitable. Helen. Lucas looks horrified, but I see the calculation behind his shock. Always performing, even now. Oh, stop pretending, darling. Helen's mask finally slips completely. You knew exactly what was happening. Why do you think I had you marry her so quickly? We needed control before she died. And you played your part perfectly. The board members shift uncomfortably. James Morton reaches for his phone, but Helen's next words freeze everyone in place. Bailey, dear, you have exactly 30 seconds to withdraw these accusations and resign, or the world learns how your father really died 10 years ago. The air leaves my lungs. What? Your mother's hands weren't entirely clean. That car accident, insurance fraud gone wrong. I have proof, documents, witness statements, everything. Your precious legacy dies today, one way or another. My carefully constructed plan crumbles. I see the board members' expressions changing, doubt creeping in. Even Paul looks uncertain. Time's up, Helen says softly. What's it going to be? Lucas moves to my side, touching my arm. Bailey, please, think about what you're doing. Some things should stay buried. I look at his hand on my arm. The wedding ring I once thought meant something. Behind him, Helen's triumphant smile grows. They've orchestrated everything. From the beginning. My marriage, my mother's death, maybe even my father's. Every choice I thought was mine was just another move in their game. You're right, I whisper. Some things should stay buried. I reach for the resignation letter James prepared earlier. Helen relaxes slightly, victory in her eyes. Instead of signing, I pull out my phone and press play. Helen's voice fills the room. You knew exactly what was happening. Why do you think I had you marry her so quickly? We needed control before she died. No. Helen lunges for the phone, but Paul catches her arm. That's not all, I say, my voice shaking. The police are executing search warrants right now. Your home, your office, Dr. Richard's clinic. And every board member here will receive copies of my mother's complete investigation files within the hour. You'll destroy everything, Lucas warns. Every reputation, every relationship. You already did that. I turn to the board. My resignation letter, gentlemen. I think you'll find it interesting reading, especially the part about Helen's involvement in 3 other corporate takeovers that ended in mysterious deaths. Helen breaks free from Paul, her composure shattered. I'll destroy you. No, I stand straighter, my mother's strength flowing through me. You'll destroy yourself. The only question is how many people you take down with you. The boardroom doors burst open. Detective Martinez leads a team of officers inside, warrant cards displayed. Helen Evans, Lucas Evans, you're under arrest for conspiracy and corporate fraud. Martinez pauses. Among other charges. As they're led away, Helen's threats echo through the hallway, but I don't move, don't speak. I stand at the head of my mother's table, in my mother's company, and let the weight of victory settle over me like a shroud. Some things should stay buried, but some truths demand to be heard, no matter the cost. The courthouse steps swarm with reporters as Helen and Lucas arrive for their arraignment. I watch from across the street, Chloe's hand steady on my arm. Even now, they play their parts perfectly. Helen dignified in designer black, Lucas appropriately somber. Ready? Paul asks quietly. Before I can answer, my phone buzzes. Unknown number. Bailey. Lucas's voice, desperate and familiar. Meet me in the park. 10 minutes. There's something you need to know about your mother. Chloe grabs my wrist. Don't. But I'm already moving. Some truths demand witnesses. The park bench where Lucas proposed sits empty, except for him. No Helen, no lawyers. He looks smaller somehow, less polished. Make it quick, I say, staying standing. Your mother knew what Helen was planning. He runs his hands through his hair. That gesture I once loved. She approached me 6 months ago, offered me immunity if I'd testify against Helen. The world tilts slightly. What? I refused, told Helen everything. That's when he stops, swallowing hard. That's when Helen decided your mother had to go. And you let it happen. I loved you. He reaches for my hand, but I step back. Maybe not at first, but I did. I couldn't betray my mother. No. You just betrayed your wife instead. Movement catches my eye. Helen emerging from behind a tree, her lawyer close behind. Of course, one final manipulation. Bailey, Helen calls out. You're making a terrible mistake. Think about what this trial will do to your father's memory, to your mother's reputation. Interesting threat, considering what just arrived at the district attorney's office. I check my watch. About 20 minutes ago, actually. Helen's smile falters. What are you talking about? Remember Sarah Chen, the investigator? She found something fascinating in my mother's safety deposit box. Video recordings, years of them. Every meeting, every threat, every scheme. You're bluffing. Mom knew what you were, Helen. Right from the start. She played you, documented everything, built an airtight case. The only thing she didn't count on was you getting to her before she could finish it. Lucas steps forward. Bailey, please. The videos show everything, including you, Lucas, admitting to Helen that Mom offered you immunity, proving premeditation. Helen's lawyer whispers urgently in her ear, but she waves him off. You wouldn't dare. It would destroy everything? I laugh, and it sounds like my mother's. That's the point. But here's the deal. Confess. Full confession, all of it. Do that, and the videos stay private. Or what? Or in 1 hour, every major news outlet receives copies. Your choice. Helen's face contorts. You stupid girl, you think you've won. I still have proof about your father's accident. I'll burn your whole family's legacy to the ground. No, Paul's voice rings out as he approaches with Detective Martinez. You won't. Martinez holds up his phone, recording. Chloe steps out from behind a tree with her own phone raised. Conspiracy, blackmail, admission of premeditated murder. Martinez lists off. Want to add anything else, Mrs. Evans? Helen lunges for me, all pretense of dignity gone. You orchestrated this entire meeting. I learned from the best. I step back as Martinez restrains her. You taught me how to play the long game, Helen. Too bad you never learned when to stop playing. Lucas doesn't resist when they cuff him. Bailey, he calls out. For what it's worth, I really did love you. I watch them lead Helen and Lucas away, their protests fading into the morning air. Paul squeezes my shoulder. Your mother would be proud, he says softly. But I'm not sure pride is what I feel. Standing in the park where my marriage began, watching it end in handcuffs and sirens, I realize revenge tastes different than I expected. Not sweet, not bitter, just final. Let's go, I tell Paul and Chloe. We have a company to run. Behind us, Helen's threats echo off marble courthouse walls, but they can't touch me anymore. Some debts can only be paid in truth, and today, the bill came due. The verdict takes less than 2 hours. I watch Helen's face as guilty echoes through the courtroom. Once, twice, 7 times total. She doesn't look at Lucas when they lead him away. His separate plea deal, securing a lighter sentence, but destroying their final connection. Outside, reporters shout questions about justice and closure. I push past them, letting Paul handle the statements. My mother's letter burns in my pocket, discovered this morning in a folder marked for after. The office is quiet when I arrive. Sarah Chen waits by my mother's desk, a familiar safety deposit box in her hands. There's something she wanted you to see, Sarah says, setting down the box. When it was over, inside, I find a single USB drive and a handwritten note. For my daughter, who always knew the difference between revenge and justice. The video plays, and my mother's face fills the screen. She looks tired but determined, recording this in her final days. Bailey, if you're watching this, then Helen and Lucas have shown their true colors. And knowing you, You've already fought back. She smiles. That fierce expression I remember from boardroom battles. But revenge isn't why I built this case. It was never about punishing them. It was about protecting you, protecting everything we built together. My throat tightens as she continues. There's one last thing you need to know. The company's overseas accounts. I've hidden something there. Not money, proof, evidence of every person Helen has destroyed over the years. Their stories, their losses, all of it. Use it wisely. Some of them might still need justice. The screen flickers. But Bailey, don't let this consume you. Helen's greatest victory would be turning you into someone like her. Someone who sees people as pieces to be played. You're my daughter. You're better than that. The video ends. Sarah quietly leaves as I sit at my mother's desk, running my fingers over the worn leather armrests. My phone buzzes. A text from Lucas's prison email account. I meant what I said. About loving you. I delete it without responding. Some wounds don't need closure. They just need to heal. Chloe appears in the doorway. The board's waiting. They want to discuss the company's direction. Tell them 5 minutes. Alone again, I open my mother's last drawer, the one I've avoided since her death. Inside, photos spill out. My father teaching me to ride a bike. My mother at my college graduation. Family moments that Helen tried to taint but couldn't touch. The last photo shows my mother and me in her office, both laughing at some forgotten joke. On the back, she'd written, "Remember who you are." I pin it to the wall, next to the company's mission statement. Then I pull out my phone and dial a number I've been holding on to. "Mrs. Rodriguez, this is Bailey Turner. I found evidence about how Helen Evans destroyed your family's business. I'd like to help make it right, because that's the thing about legacies. They're not just what we inherit, but what we choose to do with them." I grab my briefcase and head to the boardroom, leaving my mother's office door open. Through the windows, sunlight streams across the desk where Helen once plotted, where Lucas once lied, where my mother built something worth protecting. Paul meets me halfway. "Ready?" "Almost." I pause, looking back at my mother's photo. You know, she never wanted revenge. She wanted justice, not just for us, but for everyone Helen hurt. And now we finish what she started. I straighten my jacket, feeling the weight of her letter against my heart. But this time, we do it my way. The boardroom doors open, and I step through, leaving revenge behind and carrying justice forward. Because some legacies aren't about getting even. They're about making things right. And that's a story worth telling.
The glare from my laptop screen burned my eyes as I stared at the words, unable to comprehend what I was seeing. My hands trembled, hovering over the keyboard. This couldn't be real. It had to be a mistake. "Lucy, are you coming to bed?" Owen's voice drifted down the hallway, snapping me out of my trance. I slammed the laptop shut, my heart pounding. "Just a minute!" I called back, trying to keep my voice steady. As I made my way to our bedroom, my mind raced. The email I'd stumbled upon was unmistakably from my husband to my sister Helen. The words passionate, longing, and our secret jumped out at me, searing themselves into my brain. Owen was already under the covers when I entered, his reading glasses perched on his nose as he scrolled through his phone. He looked up and smiled, the same smile I'd fallen in love with 15 years ago. "Everything okay, hon?" I forced a smile. "Fine, just lost track of time." As I slipped into bed beside him, I couldn't help but study his face. Was there any hint of guilt? Any sign that he was living a double life? But all I saw was the same Owen I'd always known. Kind eyes, slightly crooked nose from a childhood accident, and that dimple in his left cheek when he smiled. "Helen called earlier," he said casually, setting his phone on the nightstand. "She wants to get together for dinner this weekend. What do you think?" My stomach churned. Oh, did she say why?" Owen shrugged. "Just to catch up, I guess. It's been a while since we've all gotten together." I turned away, pretending to fluff my pillow to hide the emotions I knew were written all over my face. Maybe. I'll have to check my schedule. "Come on, Luce," Owen said, his hand resting on my shoulder. "It'll be fun. You and Helen used to be so close." I flinched at his touch, memories of the email flooding back. How long had this been going on? How many times had I sat across the dinner table from them, oblivious to their secret glances and hidden touches? "I'm just tired," I mumbled, pulling the covers up to my chin. "We'll talk about it tomorrow." Owen leaned over and kissed my cheek. "Good night, sweetheart, I love you." The words, once a comfort, now felt like daggers in my heart. I lay there in the dark, listening to Owen's breathing slow as he drifted off to sleep. How could he lie there so peacefully while my world was crumbling around me? My phone buzzed on the nightstand, and I reached for it, grateful for the distraction. It was a text from Helen. "Hey sis, can't wait to see you this weekend. I've got some big news to share." I stared at the message, my vision blurring with unshed tears. What news could she possibly have? Was she going to confess? Or was this some new betrayal? As the night wore on, sleep eluded me. I tossed and turned, replaying every interaction I'd had with Helen and Owen over the past few months. Had there been signs I'd missed? Moments of tension or awkwardness I'd brushed off? By the time the first rays of sunlight peeked through the curtains, I'd made up my mind. I couldn't confront them yet, not without more evidence. I needed to know the full extent of their betrayal before I made my next move. As Owen's alarm went off and he stirred beside me, I steeled myself for the day ahead. I would play the role of the loving wife and doting sister, all while plotting my revenge. They had no idea what was coming. "Morning. Beautiful," Owen murmured, pulling me close for a kiss. I returned the kiss, tasting the bitterness of his lies. "Good morning," I replied, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "So about dinner with Helen this weekend, I think it's a great idea." The days leading up to our dinner with Helen crawled by, each moment a torturous exercise in maintaining my composure. As I stood in front of the mirror applying a final touch of lipstick, I couldn't help but wonder how long I'd been living this lie. "You look beautiful," Owen said, appearing behind me. His hands rested on my shoulders, and I fought the urge to shrug them off. I forced a smile. "Thanks. We should get going." The drive to the restaurant was filled with idle chatter about work and neighborhood gossip. As Owen prattled on, my mind wandered to memories of Helen and me as children. We'd been inseparable once, sharing secrets and dreams. When had that changed? Helen was already at the table when we arrived, her face lighting up as she saw us. "Lucy! Owen!" she exclaimed, jumping up to hug us both. I stiffened at her touch, memories of the email flooding back. Had she always hugged Owen for a beat too long? As we settled into our seats, Helen couldn't contain her excitement. "I have big news," she announced, her eyes sparkling. "I'm moving back to town." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "What?" I managed to choke out. Owen's reaction was equally surprising. He paled slightly, his fork clattering against his plate. "That's unexpected," he said, his voice strained. Helen didn't seem to notice our discomfort. "I know, right? It all happened so fast. I got a job offer I couldn't refuse, and, well, I've missed being close to family." Her eyes flicked to Owen for a split second, so quickly I almost missed it, but it was enough to confirm my worst fears. "That's wonderful news, Helen," I said, plastering on a smile that felt more like a grimace. "Where will you be staying?" "Oh, I haven't figured that out yet," she replied, waving her hand dismissively. "I was hoping I could crash with you guys for a few weeks while I apartment hunt, just like old times, right?" The thought of Helen in our house, sleeping under our roof while carrying on an affair with my husband, made me physically ill. I opened my mouth to refuse, but Owen beat me to it. "Of course," he said, his voice overly cheerful. "We'd love to have you, wouldn't we, Lucy?" I felt trapped, cornered by their expectant gazes. "Sure," I heard myself say, as if from a great distance. Just like old times. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur. I picked at my food, my appetite gone, as Helen chattered on about her new job and her plans for the move. Owen was uncharacteristically quiet, his eyes darting between Helen and me. As we said our goodbyes in the parking lot, Helen pulled me into another hug. "I'm so excited, Luce," she whispered. "It'll be just like when we were kids." I pulled away, unable to bear her touch any longer. "Yeah," I muttered, "just like that." The drive home was silent, the tension between Owen and me palpable. As we pulled into our driveway, I couldn't hold back anymore. "How long?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Owen's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "What are you talking about?" I turned to face him, anger and hurt bubbling up inside me. How long have you been sleeping with my sister? The color drained from Owen's face. He opened his mouth, then closed it again, at a loss for words. I saw the email, I continued, my voice gaining strength. I know everything. Owen's shoulders slumped in defeat. Lucy, we never meant for this to happen. It was a mistake. I laughed bitterly. A mistake? Is that what you call betraying your wife with her own sister? It's over, Owen pleaded. I swear, Lucy, it was just a fling. It didn't mean anything. His words cut deep, each one a fresh wound. And now she's moving in with us, I said, the reality of the situation hitting me anew. How convenient for you both. I got out of the car, slamming the door behind me. As I walked towards the house, I heard Owen calling after me, but I didn't turn back. My mind was racing, piecing together a plan. If they thought they could continue this charade under my own roof, they had another thing coming. I may have been blindsided by their betrayal, but I wouldn't be their fool any longer. It was time to take control of this narrative, and I knew exactly where to start. The day Helen moved in, I felt like a stranger in my own home. I watched from the kitchen window as Owen helped her carry boxes from her car, their easy laughter drifting through the open window. My hands shook as I gripped my coffee mug, knuckles white with the effort of maintaining my composure. Lucy? Helen's voice rang out as she entered the kitchen. Where should I put my toiletries? I turned, forcing a smile. Guest bathroom. Top drawer, I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. Helen beamed, oblivious to my inner turmoil. Thanks, sis, it's so great to be here. Just like old times, right? I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As Helen bounded back upstairs, I caught Owen's eye. He looked away quickly, guilt written all over his face. The next few days were a special kind of hell. I found myself hyper-aware of every interaction between Helen and Owen, analyzing every glance, every casual touch. Were they laughing too much at each other's jokes? Did their hands linger too long when passing the salt at dinner? One evening, as I was folding laundry in our bedroom, I overheard them talking in the hallway. We can't keep doing this, Owen whispered urgently. Lucy's getting suspicious. Helen's reply was too low for me to hear, but Owen's response made my blood run cold. I know, but we need to be more careful. Maybe we should cool things off for a while, at least until you find your own place. I dropped the shirt I was folding, my hands trembling. They were still seeing each other, right under my nose. The next morning, I woke to find a note from Owen on the kitchen counter. Early meeting. Won't be home for dinner. Love you. The words mocked me, each one a fresh betrayal. As I crumpled the note, Helen breezed into the kitchen. Morning, Luce. Want to grab lunch later? We haven't had much sister time lately. I stared at her, wondering how she could act so normal, so loving, while destroying my life. Sorry, I managed. I have errands to run. Helen's face fell. Oh, okay. Maybe another time? I nodded non-committally and fled the house, unable to bear another moment in her presence. I found myself driving aimlessly, eventually ending up at the park where Owen and I had our first date. As I sat on a bench watching families and couples stroll by, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Janet, my mother-in-law. Lucy, dear, haven't heard from you in a while. Everything okay? I stared at the message, tears welling up in my eyes. Janet had always been more of a mother to me than my own. The thought of her disappointment in Owen, in all of us, was almost too much to bear. Before I could talk myself out of it, I hit the call button. Lucy? Janet's warm voice answered. Is everything all right? And just like that, the dam broke. Through sobs, I poured out the whole sordid story. The email, the dinner, Helen moving in, and my suspicions that the affair was ongoing. Janet listened in stunned silence. When I finally ran out of words, she spoke, her voice thick with emotion. Oh, Lucy, I'm so sorry. What can I do? I took a deep breath, suddenly feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Can I come over? I don't think I can go back to that house right now. Of course, dear. I'll put the kettle on. As I drove to Janet's, a plan began to form in my mind. I couldn't confront Owen and Helen yet, not without irrefutable proof. But with Janet's support, I could start gathering evidence. And when the time came to expose their betrayal, I'd be ready. For the first time since discovering the affair, I felt a glimmer of hope. I wasn't alone in this fight anymore, and with Janet by my side, I was ready to reclaim my life and my dignity. The annual family barbecue loomed on the horizon, a day I once looked forward to, but now dreaded. As I stood in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for a salad, I couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. "Need any help?" Helen's voice startled me, and the knife slipped, nicking my finger. "Damn it!" I hissed, grabbing a paper towel to stem the blood. Helen rushed over, concern etched on her face. "Oh, Lucy, I'm so sorry. Here, let me see." I jerked away from her touch. "I'm fine," I snapped, harsher than I intended. Hurt flashed across Helen's face. "Luce, what's going on? You've been so distant lately. Did I do something wrong?" The irony of her question nearly made me laugh. Instead, I forced a smile. "It's nothing, just stressed about the barbecue." Helen nodded, though she didn't look convinced. "Well, if you need to talk." "Actually," I interrupted, an idea forming. "Could you run to the store? We're out of charcoal." Once Helen was gone, I made my move. I'd been waiting for a chance to search her room, and this was it. My heart pounded as I slipped into the guest bedroom, feeling like a thief in my own home. I rifled through drawers and closets, not sure what I was looking for, but knowing I'd recognize it when I saw it. Just as I was about to give up, I spotted Helen's laptop peeking out from under the bed. With shaking hands, I opened it. To my surprise, it wasn't password protected. I clicked on her email, my conscience screaming at me to stop, but I couldn't. I had to know. And there it was. Dozens of emails between Helen and Owen, dating back months. My eyes skimmed over words like love, future, and can't wait to be together. But it was the most recent email that made my blood run cold. "We need to tell Lucy soon. I can't keep living this lie. I love you, and I want to start our life together. Owen." The laptop slipped from my hands, clattering to the floor. They weren't just having an affair. They were planning a future together. My future was being erased, rewritten without me in it. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at nothing, before I heard the front door open. "Lucy? I'm back with the charcoal," Helen called. I scrambled to my feet, hastily shoving the laptop back under the bed. As I left the room, I nearly collided with Owen in the hallway. "Whoa, careful there," he said, steadying me with his hands. The same hands that had typed those betraying words. "What were you doing in Helen's room?" I looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of the man I thought I knew. "Just looking for an extra tablecloth." I lied smoothly. "For the barbecue." Owen nodded, but his eyes narrowed slightly. "Right, the barbecue. Listen, Lucy, there's something I need to talk to you about after the party. It's important." My heart raced. Was this it? Was he planning to end our marriage at our family gathering? "Can't we talk now?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Owen shook his head. "It's not the right time. After the barbecue, okay?" As he walked away, I felt something inside me harden. I'd been passive for too long, waiting for confessions, hoping it was all a misunderstanding. But now I knew the truth, and I wasn't about to let them control the narrative any longer. I pulled out my phone and texted Janet, "Change of plans. We need to talk before the barbecue. It's time." Janet's reply came almost instantly. "I'm here for you, Lucy. Whatever you need." As I pocketed my phone, a strange calm settled over me. The barbecue was no longer something to dread. It was an opportunity. Owen and Helen wanted to start their new life? Fine. But first, they'd have to face the consequences of their actions. And I would make sure every single person at that barbecue knew exactly what kind of people they really were. I sat in Janet's cozy living room, my hands wrapped around a steaming mug of tea. The familiar scent of lavender and chamomile did little to calm my frayed nerves. Janet settled into the armchair across from me, her kind eyes filled with concern. "Lucy, dear," she began gently, "tell me everything." And so I did. The words poured out of me like a dam breaking. The initial email discovery, Helen moving in, the overheard conversations, and finally, the damning emails I'd found on Helen's laptop. As I spoke, Janet's expression shifted from shock to disbelief to anger. "I can't believe Owen would do this," she whispered, shaking her head. "And Helen, your own sister. It's unconscionable." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of relief and renewed pain at having someone else acknowledge the betrayal. "I don't know what to do, Janet. They're planning to tell me after the barbecue. I think Owen's going to ask for a divorce." Janet reached out and squeezed my hand. "Not if we have anything to say about it. Lucy, you have a choice to make. You can wait for them to control the narrative, or you can take charge." I looked up, meeting her determined gaze. "What do you mean?" "The barbecue," Janet said, a glint in her eye. Everyone will be there. If you want to expose their affair, that would be the perfect opportunity. My heart raced at the thought. But wouldn't that just cause a scene? Make everything worse? Janet leaned forward. Sometimes, dear, things need to get worse before they can get better. You've been suffering in silence for too long. It's time for Owen and Helen to face the consequences of their actions. As I considered her words, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Owen. Where are you? Helen's asking about dinner plans. The casual tone, as if nothing was wrong, made my blood boil. I showed the message to Janet, who frowned. They're acting like nothing's amiss, she said, planning their future while pretending to care about dinner plans. It's despicable. Something inside me snapped. The hurt, the betrayal, the anger, it all crystallized into a hard, cold resolve. You're right, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. It's time they faced the music. But I need proof. Something concrete to show everyone. Janet nodded, a determined look on her face. We'll find it. Between the two of us, we'll uncover every bit of evidence we can. Emails, text messages, credit card statements, anything that proves their affair. As we began to plan, I felt a strange mix of excitement and dread. Part of me still hoped it was all a misunderstanding, so that there would be some innocent explanation, but the rational part of my brain knew better. What about George? I asked suddenly, thinking of Owen's father. Should we tell him before the barbecue? Janet shook her head. No, he needs to hear it with everyone else. George has always been proud of Owen. This will be a shock, but he needs to see the truth for himself. As the afternoon wore on, our plan took shape. We would gather as much evidence as possible over the next few days. Then, at the barbecue, when everyone was present, we would confront Owen and Helen with the truth. As I prepared to leave, Janet pulled me into a tight hug. Remember, Lucy, she whispered, you're stronger than you know, and you're not alone in this. Driving home, I felt a strange sense of calm. The decision was made. In just a few days, everything would change. My marriage, my relationship with my sister, my entire life. It would all be different after the barbecue. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw Owen and Helen through the kitchen window, laughing as they prepared dinner together. The sight that would have once filled me with warmth now only steeled my resolve. Let them laugh, I thought. Let them think they have it all figured out. Because come Saturday, their little world was going to come crashing down around them, and I would be the one to light the match. The day of the barbecue arrived, and with it a sense of impending doom. I moved through the morning in a haze, setting up tables and preparing food with mechanical precision. Owen and Helen flitted about, helping with preparations, their false cheer grating on my nerves. As guests began to arrive, I felt Janet's reassuring presence at my side. Are you ready? She whispered. I nodded, my throat too tight for words. In my pocket, I felt the weight of the USB drive containing all the evidence we'd gathered. Emails, text messages, even credit card statements showing secret hotel stays. It was a ticking time bomb, and I held the detonator. The backyard filled with laughter and chatter as family members mingled. I watched as Owen charmed our cousins with his usual easygoing manner, while Helen regaled our aunts with stories of her new job. How could they act so normal when they were about to destroy everything? George, Owen's father, approached me with a warm smile. Lucy, dear, this is a wonderful spread. You've outdone yourself. I forced a smile, guilt gnawing at me. George had always been kind to me, treating me like a daughter. How would he react when he learned the truth about his son? As the afternoon wore on, I felt my resolve wavering. Maybe I could just confront Owen and Helen privately. Maybe we could work this out without involving the entire family. But then I saw it. A fleeting touch, a secret smile exchanged between my husband and sister when they thought no one was looking. My anger flared anew, hot and righteous. I caught Janet's eye and gave a slight nod. It was time. Janet clinked her glass, calling for everyone's attention. Family, if I could have a moment. Lucy has something she'd like to share with us all. All eyes turned to me, and for a moment, I froze. Owen looked confused, while Helen's expression flickered with something like fear. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. I have something important to tell you all. It's not easy, but... My voice cracked, and I saw concern etched on the faces around me. That's when Owen stepped forward, placing a hand on my arm. Lucy, what's going on? Are you okay? His touch, once comforting, now felt like a brand on my skin. I jerked away, anger giving me strength. No, Owen, I'm not okay, and it's time everyone knew why. With shaking hands, I pulled out the USB drive and held it up. On this drive is evidence of a betrayal so deep, so personal, that it's torn my world apart. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Helen stepped forward, her face pale. Lucy, what are you talking about? I turned to face her, my sister, my betrayer. I'm talking about your affair with my husband, Helen. I know everything. The silence that followed was deafening. Owen's face drained of color while Helen's eyes darted frantically between us. It's not. We didn't. Owen stammered, but I cut him off. Don't lie, not anymore. I turned to address the stunned family. For months, Owen and Helen have been carrying on behind my back, planning a future together while pretending to love me. Gasps and shocked exclamations erupted. George stepped forward, his face a mask of disbelief. Owen, is this true? Owen's silence was damning. Helen burst into tears, but I felt no sympathy. With trembling hands, I connected the USB to the outdoor TV we'd set up for the barbecue. Emails and text messages flashed across the screen, laying bare every secret, every lie. As the evidence mounted, I watched the faces of my family shift from shock to anger to disgust. Owen and Helen stood frozen, exposed and humiliated. I turned to face them, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. You wanted to start a new life together? Well, here's your chance, but it won't include me. And after today, I doubt it will include anyone else here either. The backyard erupted into chaos. Accusations flew, tears flowed, and in the midst of it all, I stood, feeling strangely calm. The bomb had detonated, and the fallout was just beginning. As Owen reached for me, his face pleading, I stepped back. This was far from over, but for the first time in months, I felt in control. The truth was out, and there was no going back. The backyard had become a battlefield, with family members taking sides and hurling accusations. I stood in the eye of the storm, watching as years of trust and love crumbled around me. Helen was the first to break the shocked silence that followed my revelation. Lucy, please, she sobbed, reaching for me. It's not what you think. We never meant to hurt you. I recoiled from her touch. Not what I think. I read your emails, Helen. I heard your conversations. You and Owen were planning a life together behind my back. Owen stepped forward, his face ashen. Lucy, we can explain. It just happened. We tried to fight it, but what? I spat, my voice rising. But you couldn't help betraying your wife? Your sister? Did you think about me at all while you were sneaking around? George, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly roared to life. Owen, how could you do this to Lucy, to our family? He turned to Helen, his eyes blazing. And you. We welcomed you into our home, treated you like family, and this is how you repay us? Helen crumpled under the weight of his words, but I felt no sympathy. My own parents had passed years ago, and the Thompsons had become my family. Helen had betrayed not just me, but all of us. Janet appeared at my side, her hand steady on my arm. Lucy, dear, perhaps we should take this inside, away from prying eyes. But I was beyond caring about propriety. No, I said firmly. I'm done hiding. I'm done pretending everything is okay when it's not. They wanted to start a new life? Well, let's air out all the dirty laundry first. I turned to the gathered family members, some of whom were trying to discreetly leave. Did you know, I said, my voice carrying across the yard, that while I was caring for Aunt Martha during her chemo, these two were shacking up in hotels? Or that the business trip Owen took last month was actually a romantic getaway with my sister? Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Owen stepped toward me, his hands outstretched. Lucy, please, we can work this out. I love you. It was a mistake. Something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up frustration, of feeling second best to my vibrant, carefree sister, came pouring out. A mistake? I laughed bitterly. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. A mistake is burning dinner. This is a choice. You chose to betray me, to lie to me, to make me feel crazy for suspecting something was wrong. I turned to Helen, who was openly weeping now. And you, my own sister, how could you? Was it worth it, destroying our family for what? A few cheap thrills? Helen's sobs turned to hiccups as she tried to speak. Lucy, I'm so sorry. I never meant, we never thought. That's right. I cut her off. You never thought. About anyone but yourselves. The backyard had fallen silent, all eyes on our family drama. I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me, even as my world crumbled around me. "I want you both out of my house," I said, my voice steady. "Tonight. I don't care where you go, but I never want to see either of you again." Owen's face crumpled. "Lucy, please, we can fix this. Go to counseling, work things out." I shook my head, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. "There's nothing to fix, Owen. You and Helen broke it beyond repair. Now you get to live with the consequences." As I turned to walk away, Helen made one last desperate plea. "Lucy, wait. We're sisters. We can't end like this." I paused, looking back at her tear-stained face. For a moment, I saw the little girl who used to follow me around, begging to play with her big sister. But that girl was gone, replaced by a woman I no longer recognized. "We ended the moment you decided my husband was more important than our sisterhood," I said softly. "Goodbye, Helen." With that, I walked into the house, leaving behind the shocked silence of my family, the broken remnants of my marriage, and the sister I once loved more than anyone in the world. The door closed behind me with a final, resounding click, and I knew nothing would ever be the same again. 6 months after the disastrous family barbecue, I stood in front of an easel, paintbrush in hand, staring at the canvas before me. The divorce papers had been signed, the house sold, and my old life packed away in boxes. The woman I used to be, the dutiful wife, the loving sister, was gone, replaced by someone stronger, more resilient. A knock at the door of my new apartment startled me from my reverie. I opened it to find Janet, her arms laden with groceries. "I thought you could use some company," she said, her warm smile a balm to my still healing heart. As we prepared dinner together, Janet updated me on the family gossip. Owen and Helen had moved away, their relationship already strained by the weight of their betrayal. George had thrown himself into work, unable to reconcile his son's actions. "And you, Lucy?" Janet asked, her eyes searching my face. "How are you really doing?" I paused, considering her question. "I'm okay," I said slowly. "Some days are harder than others, but I'm finding my way." Janet nodded, reaching out to squeeze my hand. "I'm so proud of you, dear. You've shown incredible strength." After dinner, I showed Janet my latest paintings. Her eyes widened as she took in the vibrant colors and bold strokes. "Lucy, these are amazing. I had no idea you were so talented." I felt a flush of pride. Neither did I, really. It's something I loved as a girl, but I gave it up when I married Owen. Now it feels like I'm rediscovering a part of myself I'd forgotten. As Janet prepared to leave, she hesitated at the door. "George asked about you," she said softly. "The business connection with your grandfather. He wants to know if you'd be interested in taking a more active role." I blinked, surprised. "Really? Even after everything that happened?" Janet nodded. "George respects you, Lucy. He sees your strength, your integrity, and I think he feels guilty about Owen's actions." I promised to think about it, and as I closed the door behind Janet, I felt a surge of possibility. My life, which had seemed so bleak just months ago, was opening up in ways I never expected. The next morning, I woke early, feeling restless. On impulse, I grabbed my car keys and drove to the beach where Owen and I had our first date. As I walked along the shore, the cool sand beneath my feet, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The pain of betrayal still lingered, a dull ache in my chest, but it no longer consumed me. I thought of Helen, my little sister who had once been my best friend. Part of me still loved her, still missed her, but I knew that forgiveness, if it ever came, was a long way off. As the sun rose over the water, painting the sky in brilliant pinks and oranges, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I knew by heart. "George, it's Lucy. I've been thinking about your offer." An hour later, I stood in front of my easel again, but this time with a new perspective. The canvas, once blank and intimidating, now seemed full of possibility. With bold strokes, I began to paint, letting my emotions flow through the brush. The painting that emerged was a self-portrait, but not of the woman I used to be. This Lucy was strong, her eyes clear and determined, her posture straight and proud. She stood alone, but not lonely, surrounded by vibrant colors that spoke of hope and new beginnings. As I stepped back to survey my work, I realized that this painting was more than just art. It was a declaration of independence, a promise to myself. The road ahead might be uncertain, but I was ready to face it head on. Owen and Helen had betrayed me, yes. They had shattered the life I thought I wanted, but in doing so they had inadvertently set me free. Free to rediscover my passions, to forge new connections, to build a life that was truly my own. I picked up my phone once more, this time to call Janet. "I've made a decision," I told her, my voice steady and sure. "I'm going to take George up on his offer, and I'm going to have an art show. Will you help me plan it?" Janet's enthusiastic response brought a smile to my face. As I hung up, I turned back to my self-portrait. The woman on the canvas looked back at me, her eyes full of promise. "Well, Lucy," I said aloud, "looks like we're just getting started." And for the first time in a long time, I felt truly, genuinely excited for what the future might hold. The candles flickered, casting dancing shadows across the white tablecloth. I stared at my husband Simon's face, searching for a hint of the man I'd married 15 years ago. His eyes, once warm and inviting, now held a cold, distant look that sent a chill down my spine. "Valerie," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I want a divorce." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. I gripped my wine glass tightly, willing my hand not to shake. "What?" I managed to choke out. Simon leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair. "You heard me. I can't do this anymore. We're just not compatible." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "Not compatible? Simon, it's our anniversary. I thought we were celebrating our life together, not ending it." He had the decency to look uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, Val. I've been thinking about this for a while now. It's not fair to either of us to keep pretending." "Pretending?" My voice rose, drawing curious glances from nearby diners. I lowered it to a harsh whisper. "Is that what our marriage has been to you? Pretend?" Simon sighed, his eyes darting around the restaurant. "Look, can we not do this here? I thought it would be better to tell you somewhere public so you wouldn't make a scene." Anger flared within me, hot and sudden. "Make a scene? You dropped this bomb on me during our anniversary dinner, and you're worried about me making a scene?" "Val, please." I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "No, Simon, you don't get to Val, please me. Not now." As I stormed out of the restaurant, I could feel Simon's eyes on my back, along with the stares of the other patrons. The cool night air hit me like a slap, and I gulped it down, trying to clear my head. My phone buzzed in my purse. I pulled it out to see a text from my sister, Linda. "How's the big anniversary dinner going? Simon better be treating you right." I let out a bitter laugh. If Linda only knew. She'd probably swoop in with her designer handbag and credit cards ready to take me on a shopping spree to fix everything. That was Linda's solution to every problem, throw money at it until it went away. I was about to reply when Simon came rushing out of the restaurant. "Valerie, wait." I spun around to face him. "Wait for what, Simon? For you to explain how our entire marriage has been a lie?" He reached out to touch my arm, but I jerked away. "It hasn't all been a lie," he said softly. "We've had good times. It's just, I want more." "More?" I repeated, incredulous. "More than a loving wife? More than a comfortable home? What exactly is it that you want, Simon?" He hesitated, his eyes darting away from mine. In that moment, I saw something in his expression that made my blood run cold. It was a mixture of guilt and excitement. "I want a life that's bigger," he said finally. "More exciting, like the one your sister has." The pieces suddenly clicked into place. Linda's constant calls and texts to Simon, the way she'd been hanging around our house more often, the secretive smiles they shared when they thought I wasn't looking. "Oh my God," I breathed. "It's Linda, isn't it? You're leaving me for my sister." Simon's silence was all the confirmation I needed. I stumbled backward, feeling like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. "Valerie, Don't," I cut him off, holding up a hand. "Just don't." I turned and walked away, my heels clicking on the pavement. Behind me, I could hear Simon calling my name, but I didn't look back. My mind was reeling, trying to process the betrayal not just from my husband, but from my own sister. As I reached the corner, I paused and took a deep breath. The life I thought I knew had just crumbled around me. But standing there, alone in the night, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something new. Something that would be entirely mine. I woke up the next morning with a pounding headache and a hollow feeling in my chest. For a blissful moment, I forgot about last night's disaster. Then reality came crashing back, and I groaned, burying my face in the pillow. The doorbell rang, startling me. I stumbled out of bed, threw on a robe, and made my way downstairs. When I opened the door, I found Linda standing there, looking perfect as always in her designer outfit and immaculate makeup. "Oh, sweetie," she cooed, pushing past me into the house. "I heard about what happened. Are you okay?" I stared at her, dumbfounded. "You heard? From who? Simon?" Linda waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, you know how gossip travels. Now let's get you cleaned up. We're going shopping." "Shopping?" I repeated, my voice flat. "Linda, my marriage just imploded. I don't want to go shopping," she tsked, examining my face critically. "That's exactly why you need to go shopping, Val. Nothing cures a broken heart like a new wardrobe." I was about to argue when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Simon. "We need to talk. Can I come over?" Linda peered over my shoulder. "Is that Simon? Tell him to come. I'll mediate." "Mediate?" I sputtered. "Linda, this isn't—" But she was already typing a response. Before I could stop her, she hit send. "There," she said, handing me back my phone. "He'll be here in an hour. Now, let's get you presentable." An hour later, I was sitting in my living room feeling like a puppet in Linda's hands. She'd insisted on doing my hair and makeup, and I was wearing one of her designer dresses that she'd forgotten in her car. When Simon walked in, his eyes widened. "Val," he breathed, "you look different." I shifted uncomfortably under his gaze. "Linda's idea," I muttered. Simon nodded, his eyes darting between Linda and me. "Can we talk privately?" Linda stood up, smoothing her skirt. "Of course, I'll just be in the kitchen making some coffee." As soon as she was out of earshot, Simon leaned forward. "Val, I'm sorry about last night. I shouldn't have sprung that on you like that." I laughed bitterly. "You think? Simon, you asked for a divorce on our anniversary, in public." He had the grace to look ashamed. "I know, it was wrong. But Val, you have to understand. Our life, it's so small. Don't you want more?" "More what?" I asked, my voice rising. "More debt? More stress? More keeping up with the Joneses?" Simon's face hardened. "More excitement, more passion, more life. Look at Linda. She's always traveling, always experiencing new things. Don't you want that?" I felt like I'd been slapped. "So that's it? You want to trade me in for a newer model? One that's more like my sister?" "Isn't it?" I stood up, anger coursing through me. "Well, let me tell you something, Simon. Linda's life isn't all glamour and excitement. It's smoke and mirrors. She's drowning in debt, always chasing the next big thrill. Is that really what you want?" Simon's eyes widened. "What are you talking about? Linda's successful. She's a fraud," I hissed. "And if you're so desperate to be like her, then go ahead. Divorce me, marry her, see how long it takes before reality comes crashing down." Just then, Linda waltzed back in, carrying a tray of coffee. "Everything okay in here?" she asked, her voice syrupy sweet. I turned to her, my eyes blazing. "Why don't you tell Simon the truth, Linda? About your maxed-out credit cards, your second mortgage, the loans you can't pay back?" Linda's face went pale. "Valerie, I don't know what you're talking about. Save it." I snapped. I turned back to Simon, who was looking between us with growing horror. "You want a divorce? Fine. But don't come crawling back when you realize the grass isn't greener on the other side." I stormed out of the room, leaving Simon and Linda staring after me in shocked silence. As I slammed the bedroom door behind me, I felt a strange of anger and exhilaration. For the first time in years, I'd stood up for myself, and it felt good. I was folding laundry when Simon burst through the front door, his eyes wild with excitement. "Val, you won't believe what I just saw." I sighed, bracing myself. "What is it, Simon?" He grabbed my hands, pulling me towards the window. "Look, that new high-rise they've been building. It's finished, and they're starting to sell units." I squinted at the gleaming tower in the distance. "Okay, and?" Simon laughed. "And we should buy one. Can you imagine living up there? The views, the amenities, the prestige." I pulled my hands away, feeling a familiar knot of anxiety forming in my stomach. "Simon, we can't afford that. You know our budget is tight as it is." His face fell, then hardened. "There you go again, always focusing on what we can't do. Why can't you dream a little, Val?" "I'm not dreaming, I'm being realistic," I snapped. "Someone has to be." Simon's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, a small smile playing on his lips. "It's Linda. She wants to know if we want to go see one of the model units with her." Of course it was Linda. Ever since our confrontation, she'd been trying to worm her way back into our lives, acting as if nothing had happened. You go, I said, turning back to my laundry. I have work to do. Simon hesitated. Come on, Val. It'll be fun. Just to look. I spun around, anger flaring. Just to look? Like how you were just looking at Linda. His face flushed. That's not fair. I told you nothing happened between us. Yet, I muttered. Simon's jaw clenched. You know what? I'm going, with or without you. As he stormed out, I felt a mix of relief and dread. Part of me wanted to run after him, to try and make him see reason. But another part, a growing part, was tired of always being the responsible one, the killjoy. Hours later, Simon returned, practically floating on air. Val, you should have seen it. The marble countertops, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the private terrace. I tried to tune him out, focusing on preparing dinner, but his words wormed their way into my brain, painting a picture of a life so different from our current one. And Linda says she knows the developer. She thinks she can get us a great deal. I froze. The knife I was using to chop vegetables clattering to the counter. What? Simon had the decency to look sheepish. Well, I may have put down a deposit, just to hold our place in line, you understand. You did what? I could hear my voice rising, but I couldn't stop it. Without talking to me first? I tried to talk to you, Simon shot back, but you wouldn't even come look. Because we can't afford it, I yelled. How much was this deposit? Simon mumbled something under his breath. What was that? He sighed. $20,000. The room spun. I gripped the counter to steady myself. 20, Simon, that's our entire savings. It's an investment in our future, he insisted. Linda says, I don't care what Linda says, I exploded. She's not the one who has to live with the consequences. Simon's face darkened. No, but at least she believes in me. In us, unlike you. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled back, tears pricking my eyes. If you think throwing away our security on some pipe dream means I don't believe in us, then maybe you don't know me at all. For a moment, we stood there, the weight of unspoken words hanging between us. Then Simon grabbed his keys. Where are you going? I asked, my voice small. Out, he snapped. I need some air. As the door slammed behind him, I sank to the floor, my mind reeling. How had we gotten here? And more importantly, where were we headed? I glanced out the window at the looming high-rise, its lights twinkling like false promises in the gathering dusk. Somehow, I knew that building would be the making or breaking of us. And right now, it felt a lot more like breaking. The weeks following Simon's impulsive deposit on the high-rise apartment were a blur of arguments and icy silences. I threw myself into work, staying late at the office to avoid coming home to another confrontation. But I couldn't escape forever. One evening I walked in to find Simon and Linda huddled over a stack of glossy brochures at our kitchen table. They jumped apart when they saw me, guilt written all over their faces. What's going on? I asked, my voice tight. Simon cleared his throat. Val, we need to talk about our future. I dropped my bag, bracing myself. Our future? Linda stood up, smoothing her designer dress. I'll leave you two alone, she said, but Simon caught her arm. No, stay. We're all family here. He turned to me, his eyes gleaming with an intensity that made me uneasy. Val, I've been thinking, we need to make some changes if we're going to afford this new lifestyle. I felt a chill run down my spine. What kind of changes? He pushed a paper across the table. I picked it up, my hands shaking. It was a loan application. You want to take out a second mortgage? I gasped. Simon, are you out of your mind? It's the only way we can afford the down payment, he insisted. Linda's helped me run the numbers. If we tighten our belts a little. A little? I interrupted, scanning the document. This would triple our monthly payments. Linda leaned forward, her voice soothing. Valerie, dear, sometimes you have to spend money to make money. This apartment is an investment in your future. I rounded on her. Our future, Linda. Not yours. Why are you even involved in this? Simon stood up abruptly. Because she understands what it takes to get ahead in life. Unlike you. The words hit me like a slap. I stumbled back, tears pricking my eyes. Is that what you think? That I'm holding you back? Val, that's not what I meant. But I was already moving, grabbing my bag and heading for the door. I needed air, space to think. I walked for hours, my mind racing. When had our simple, comfortable life become not enough for Simon? And how had I not seen it coming? My phone buzzed incessantly, messages from Simon, from Linda. I ignored them all. As night fell, I found myself standing in front of the gleaming high-rise that had caused all this trouble. I stared up at its glittering windows, each one representing a life so different from my own. A text from Simon broke through my reverie. "If you're not on board with this, maybe we need to rethink our whole relationship." The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. This wasn't just about an apartment anymore. This was about the very foundation of our marriage. I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. It was time to make a decision. I could give in, sign the loan papers, and watch as we spiraled into debt chasing Simon's dreams of grandeur. Or I could stand my ground, risking my marriage but preserving my self-respect and financial stability. As I turned to head home, I caught my reflection in the high-rise's gleaming doors. The woman staring back at me looked tired, but there was a strength in her eyes that I hadn't seen in years. I knew what I had to do. It wouldn't be easy, but nothing worth fighting for ever is. With trembling fingers, I typed out a response to Simon. "We need to talk. I'm coming home now, and I'm bringing divorce papers." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. As I walked away from the high-rise, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Whatever happened next, I knew I was finally choosing myself. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. It was time to reclaim my life, even if it meant leaving behind the man I thought I'd spend forever with. I paced the living room, my nerves frayed to breaking point. It was well past midnight, and Simon still wasn't home. My phone lay silent on the coffee table, mocking me with its lack of messages or calls. Just as I was about to call him for the 100th time, I heard the unmistakable sound of Simon's car pulling into the driveway. But the laughter that followed, high-pitched and feminine, made my blood run cold. The front door burst open, and Simon stumbled in arm with Linda. Both were clearly drunk, their faces flushed and clothes disheveled. "Val?" Simon slurred, his eyes widening as he spotted me. "What are you still doing up?" I crossed my arms, fighting to keep my voice steady. "Waiting for my husband to come home, though I see he brought company." Linda giggled, leaning heavily on Simon. "Oh, don't be such a stick in the mud, sis. We were just having a little fun." "Fun?" I echoed, my voice hollow. "Is that what you call this?" Simon disentangled himself from Linda, stumbling towards me. "Val, baby, it's not what it looks like." "Then what is it, Simon?" I snapped, backing away from his outstretched hand. "Because it looks like you've been out drinking with my sister while I've been sitting here worried sick." Linda flopped onto the couch, kicking off her heels. "Oh, lighten up, Valerie. Simon was just telling me all about your little disagreement." I froze, looking between them. "What?" Simon at least had the decency to look ashamed. "I needed someone to talk to, Val. You've been so distant lately. So you went to her?" I gestured wildly at Linda, who was now rifling through her purse. "Of all people? At least she listens to me," Simon shouted, his drunken state amplifying his emotions. "She understands my dreams, my ambitions. Unlike you, always trying to hold me back." The words hit me like a physical blow. I stumbled back, tears pricking my eyes. "Is that really what you think of me?" Linda pulled out a folded document from her purse, waving it in the air. "Speaking of dreams and ambitions, I brought a little something that might help you two sort things out." With growing horror, I realized what she was holding. "Are those divorce papers?" Simon's eyes widened, darting between Linda and me. I didn't ask for those." Linda shrugged, a sly smile playing on her lips. "Consider it a preemptive measure. You two clearly have some issues to work out." I felt like I was drowning, the room spinning around me. "Get out," I whispered. "What was that, dear?" Linda asked, cupping her ear mockingly. "I said get out," I screamed, my composure finally shattering. "Both of you." Simon stepped towards me, his face a mask of confusion and hurt. "Val, please, let's talk about this." "There's nothing left to talk about," I said, my voice breaking. "You've made your choice, Simon. You chose her, her lifestyle, her dreams. Not me. Not us." Linda stood up, swaying slightly. "Well, this has been fun, but I think I'll call a cab. Simon, darling, are you coming?" I watched, my heart breaking, as Simon hesitated. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd married. Kind, loving, content with our simple life. But then his eyes hardened, and he turned to Linda. "Yeah, I'm coming." As they stumbled out the door, I collapsed onto the couch, my body racked with sobs. The divorce papers lay on the coffee table, a stark reminder of how quickly life can change. With shaking hands, I picked up the document. I could tear it up, pretend this night never happened. Or I could sign it, ending years of love and shared dreams with a single stroke of a pen. As the first light of dawn crept through the windows, I made my decision. I reached for a pen, my hands steady despite the tears blurring my vision. It was time to choose myself, even if it meant losing everything I thought I wanted. I signed the papers, my name a final punctuation mark on this chapter of my life. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain. I was done living in Simon and Linda's shadow. It was time to step into the light and find my own path. The moving truck rumbled away, leaving me alone in my new apartment. It was small, nothing like the spacious house I'd shared with Simon, but it was mine. I sat on a box labeled kitchen, surveying the stacks of cardboard surrounding me, each one a piece of my old life. My phone buzzed. A text from Linda. "Hope you're settling in, sis. Simon and I are hosting a housewarming party next week. You should come." I laughed bitterly, deleting the message without replying. The audacity of that woman never ceased to amaze me. Weeks passed in a blur of unpacking and adjusting to my new reality. I threw myself into work, taking on extra projects to keep my mind occupied, but I couldn't escape the constant reminders of Simon and Linda's new life together. One evening, as I was walking home from the grocery store, I saw them. They were stepping out of a sleek sports car in front of the high-rise, laughing and wrapped up in each other. Simon was wearing a suit I'd never seen before, and Linda was practically dripping in diamonds. I ducked behind a tree, my heart pounding. They looked so happy, so carefree. For a moment, doubt crept in. Had I made a mistake? Should I have tried harder to be what Simon wanted? But then I saw it. As Linda turned to enter the building, I caught a glimpse of her face. Behind the makeup and the smile, there was a tightness around her eyes, a tension in her jaw. Something wasn't right. Curiosity got the better of me. Over the next few weeks, I found myself watching them from afar. I saw the lavish parties they threw, the expensive restaurants they frequented, but I also saw the arguments, the hushed conversations in corners, the way Simon's smile never quite reached his eyes anymore. One day I ran into my old neighbor, Mrs. Johnson, at the supermarket. Her eyes lit up when she saw me. "Valerie, oh, it's so good to see you, dear. How are you holding up?" I forced a smile. "I'm doing okay, Mrs. Johnson. How are things in the old neighborhood?" She leaned in conspiratorially. "Well, I shouldn't gossip, but that sister of yours and Simon, they're not doing so well." My heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" "There've been some men coming around looking very official, and the arguments. My word, the whole street can hear them shouting at all hours." I thanked Mrs. Johnson and hurried home, my mind racing. What had Simon and Linda gotten themselves into? That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, haunted by memories of my life with Simon and worries about what might be happening to him now. Around midnight, my phone rang. Simon's name flashed on the screen. With shaking hands, I answered. "Simon?" "Val." His voice was ragged, desperate. "I need your help. We're in trouble. Big trouble." I sat up, fully awake now. "What kind of trouble?" "It's Linda," he said, his voice breaking. She's been lying about everything, her job, her money, all of it. We're drowning in debt, Val. The bank's threatening to foreclose on the apartment. I don't know what to do." Part of me wanted to hang up, to tell him this wasn't my problem anymore. But another part, the part that still cared despite everything, couldn't turn away. "Where are you?" I asked, already reaching for my keys. "At the high-rise." "Please, Val. I know I don't deserve it, but please help me." As I drove through the dark, silent streets, my mind was in turmoil. Was I making a huge mistake? Or was this a chance to finally close this chapter of my life for good? I pulled up in front of the gleaming tower, its lights now seeming more ominous than impressive. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out of the car and walked towards the entrance, not knowing what awaited me inside, but knowing that whatever happened next would change everything. The elevator ride to the penthouse felt endless. When the doors finally opened, I stepped into a scene of chaos. The once immaculate apartment was strewn with papers, empty bottles, and discarded shopping bags. Simon sat hunched on the sofa, his head in his hands. "Val," he croaked, looking up. "You came." I took in his disheveled appearance, the dark circles under his eyes. "What's going on, Simon?" He gestured helplessly at the mess around him. "It's all falling apart. Linda." She's been lying about everything. Her job, her money, all of it. A bitter laugh escaped me. I tried to tell you. I know, he interrupted, his voice breaking. I should have listened. God, I've been such a fool. Just then the front door burst open. Linda stumbled in, her designer dress askew, reeking of alcohol. Her eyes widened when she saw me. Well, she slurred. Look who's come crawling back. I stood my ground. I'm here because Simon called me. What have you done, Linda? She waved her hand dismissively, nearly losing her balance. Nothing that concerns you, little sister. This is between me and my husband. Ex-husband, I corrected sharply. Simon stood up, his face a mask of anguish. Linda, please, we need to tell her the truth. Linda's facade cracked, fear flashing in her eyes. Simon, don't. But he was already pulling out a stack of papers from a drawer. Val, we're in trouble. Serious trouble. She's been embezzling from her company for years, using the money to fund this lifestyle. I felt the blood drain from my face. What? Linda lunged for the papers, but Simon held them out of reach. It's over, Linda. I can't keep living this lie. She rounded on me, her eyes wild. This is your fault. You've poisoned him against me. I didn't do anything, I said, backing away. You did this to yourself. Linda grabbed a nearby vase, hurling it at the wall. It shattered, the sound echoing through the apartment. Get out, she screamed. Both of you. Get out. Simon grabbed my arm, pulling me towards the door. We need to go. Now. As we rushed to the elevator, I could hear Linda's sobs and the sound of more things breaking. My heart was pounding, my mind reeling from the revelations. In the lobby, Simon turned to me, his eyes pleading. Val, I'm so sorry for everything. I was blind, stupid. Can you ever forgive me? I looked at him, this man I had loved for so long. Part of me wanted to comfort him, to say it was all okay, but I knew it wasn't. It could never be okay again. Simon, I said softly, I can't do this. Your problems with Linda, the embezzlement, it's not my responsibility anymore. His face crumpled. But Val, I love you. I realize that now. We can start over, make things right. I held up a hand, stopping him. No, Simon, we can't. Too much has happened. I've changed. I'm not the same woman who would have dropped everything to fix your mistakes. What are you saying? He whispered. I took a deep breath, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. I'm saying goodbye, Simon, for good this time. As I walked out of the building, I could hear Simon calling my name, but I didn't look back. The cool night air hit my face, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. My phone buzzed, a message from my boss about a potential promotion. I smiled, realizing that while one chapter of my life was ending, another was just beginning. I hailed a cab, giving the driver my address. As we pulled away from the high-rise, I watched it shrink in the rearview mirror. The glittering facade now seemed hollow, a perfect metaphor for the life I'd left behind. I was done living in Simon and Linda's shadow. It was time to step into the light and find my own path. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain. I was ready to face it on my own terms. 6 months after that fateful night at the high-rise, I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my new blazer. Today was my first day as the newly promoted head of marketing at my firm. The woman staring back at me looked confident, strong, and most importantly, happy. My phone buzzed with a news alert. I nearly dropped it when I saw the headline, Local Businesswoman Arrested for Embezzlement, Ex-Husband Implicated. My hands shaking, I opened the article. There, in stark black and white, were Linda and Simon's mugshots. The story detailed how Linda's years of financial fraud had finally caught up with her and how Simon had become an unwitting accomplice in her schemes. For a moment, I felt a pang of sympathy for Simon, but then I remembered his cruel words, his disdain for our simple life, his betrayal. The sympathy faded, replaced by a sense of vindication. As I drove to work, my mind wandered to the last few months. After walking away from Simon that night, I'd thrown myself into my career and personal growth. I'd taken up yoga, joined a book club, even started painting again. Something I'd given up years ago to accommodate Simon's social calendar. My new apartment, once feeling small and empty, now felt like a sanctuary. Each piece of furniture, each decoration, was a reflection of me, not Simon's tastes, not Linda's extravagant style, just mine. At the office, my colleagues greeted me with warm congratulations. As I settled into my new corner office, my assistant poked her head in. "Miss Thompson, there's a call for you on line 1. It's your ex-husband." I froze, my hand hovering over the phone. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to continue with my day as if Simon didn't exist. But another part, the stronger part, knew I needed this closure. I picked up the receiver. "Hello, Simon." "Val." His voice was rough, defeated. I don't know why I'm calling. I needed to hear your voice." I closed my eyes, steadying myself. "I saw the news, Simon. I'm sorry things turned out this way." He let out a bitter laugh. "Sorry? Don't be. I did this to myself. I threw away the best thing in my life, chasing some ridiculous dream." "Simon?" "No, let me finish," he interrupted. "I was a fool, Val. I had everything, a loving wife, a comfortable life, real happiness, and I threw it all away for what? Fancy cars and empty promises?" I listened silently, feeling a mix of emotions wash over me, sadness, anger, and finally, a sense of peace. "I know it's too late," Simon continued, his voice breaking, "but I needed you to know that I realize now what I lost. You were always the best part of me, Val. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I took a deep breath. "Thank you for saying that, Simon. I hope you find peace, I really do. But you're right, it is too late. I've moved on, and I'm happier now than I've been in years." There was a long pause. "I'm glad," he finally said, his voice barely a whisper. "You deserve all the happiness in the world, Val. Goodbye." As I hung up the phone, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The last threads tying me to my old life had finally been cut. I walked to the window of my new office, looking out over the city. The high rise where Simon and Linda had lived their ill-fated dream was visible in the distance. But it no longer held any power over me. My assistant knocked on the door. "Miss Thompson, the team is ready for your first meeting." I smiled, turning away from the window. "Thank you, Sarah. I'll be right there." As I gathered my notes and headed to the conference room, I felt a surge of excitement for the future. The path ahead was entirely my own, full of possibilities I had yet to discover. Simon's departure hadn't been the end of my story. It had been the beginning. And as I stepped into the meeting room, ready to lead my team into a new project, I knew that the best chapters of my life were still to come.